Hi everyone, I am Dr. Bhoneshwari, working as a professor, Department of MBA, Global Academy of Technology, Bangalore. Today we are going to discuss about the appraisal and assessment of credit facilities. So first, when it comes to the module A, module B, first we have discussed with the principles of lending. Okay, there we have discussed the various kinds of lending. What is the mainly we have discussed with the principles of lending and what are the various kinds of credit facilities are available to the customer, which is based on the different kinds of the customer. And the next we have discussed about the based on the business how we can divide the lending, so that we have discussed in the previous video. So in continuation of that previous video, today we are going to discuss with the appraisal and assessment of credit facilities. So before providing, so that is also one of the functions of a bank. Before providing the loans and advances to the general public, what kind of the appraisal and assessment have been done by the banker in order to recover that loan facilities, that we are going to discuss in this video, appraisal and assessment of credit facilities. So the presentation goes like this. First, which starts from the introduction. So I will first start with the introduction part. So one should understand about the credit and appraisal. So they can have the easily understand the concept of the appraisal and assessment of the credit facilities. As already we discussed that credit is nothing but the loan or debt sanctioned by a bank to its customer. A kind of a loan or a debt. A debt is nothing but the which is banker as a creditor and customer as a debtor. Okay, sanctioned by a bank to its customers. So bank வந்து கஸ்டமருக்கு எந்த லோனையோ இல்லை டெட்டையோ சாங்ஷன் பண்ணாங்க அப்படின்னா அதுக்கு பேர் கிரெடிட். ஸோ அப்ரைசல் தி ப்ராசஸ் ஆஃப் அசஸ்மெண்ட் இவாலுவேஷன் ஆர் ரிவ்யூ ஆஃப் ஏ கிரெடிட் proposal. So when the customer approach a bank, when a borrower approach a bank to avail a different kinds of the loan facilities, so first process will be the assessment. So assessment of the loans. When it comes to the assessment, so what is the assessment? Assessment is nothing but the already we have discussed under the principles of lending only, we have discussed about the different kinds of the C's. So they have to assess the character of a borrower, they have to assess the credit worthiness of a borrower, so they have to assess the their credibility of a borrower. So that is called it as the assessment, and they have to evaluate or review of a credit proposal. So what is the credit proposal they are applying for? That they have to review whether they can able to repay that credit amount or not. So that is we call it as the appraisal. So there are two kinds of the things. One is a credit, another one is the appraisal. So first one is the what is that credit appraisal? The critical evaluation of a loan requested by a borrower. Appraisal is nothing but the critical evaluation of a loan requested by a borrower to determine the credit worthiness. So whether the borrower can have a ability to repay the loan amount. What is the credit worthiness of the borrower? That can be identified through this, that is called it as the credit appraisal, whether such a borrower can able to repay the loan amount or not. If the customer does not have a ability to repay the loan amount, then it will be difficult to recover the loan amount from the customer. So that will be a big task to the banker. So that is called it as the appraisal. Objective. So what is the main objective? The safety and liquidity. Already we have discussed there in the principles of lending: safety, liquidity, profitability. So safety is nothing but whether if the banker lend the loan to the borrower, whether the borrower can able to money, then only that money will be safe, because that is the money for not for a banker, that is the money from the depositor, because the banker they need to repay that amount to the depositor with interest. Okay, so with interest they have to repay. So in such a case, what is the safety? There we can define: when they are lending the loans and advances to the public, such a people can able to repay the loans. Out of that interest of that loan repayment, they can satisfy the needs of the depositors interest. So that is the case why they have to maintain the safety as well as the liquidity and the profitability from the credit extended. Whatever the credit facilities என்ன மாதிரியான கிரெடிட் கொடுத்துருக்காங்களோ அதுலேருந்து அவங்களுக்கு என்ன கிடைக்கணும் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோன்னா ப்ராஃபிட், ஒரு ப்ராஃபிட் வரணும். ஸோ அதுதான் credit appraisal அப்படிங்கிறது. இதுதான் objectives as well as the definition of credit appraisal. So what are the key factors in credit appraisal? So key factors in credit appraisal that we have already discussed about that C's. There are 8 C's we discussed under the principles of lending. So under this first one is the character, the borrower's integrity and reliability, whether the borrowers can have a ability to repay the amount. What is the integrity? Integrity is nothing but the which speaks about the what is the discipline they have made it, whether they can able to repay the amount or they can loot the amount. So that under reliability, so reliability of a customer is one of the important case. So that is the when they have to made an appraisal, they have to look into the character of the borrowers, whether the such a borrower has the integrity as well as the reliability. And the next one is the collateral, assets pledged by the borrower at a security for the loan. So collateral is nothing but the collateral security. So some of the loans are lending by the banker against the certain collateral security, that is an assets. Whatever the assets are pledged by the banker, such assets might be the any kind of the immobile property. Immobile property is or movable property. When it comes to the immovable property, land and building, plant and machinery, furnitures and fixtures. So these are all immobile property. When it comes to the mobile property, loans has been given against the gold, has been given against the gold or sanctioned against the gold. So that is, we can say that the movable property. So such a borrower, collateral security is one of the important aspect. So such a collateral security, based on the value of the collateral security, bankers provide the loans to the customers. Then whether the borrower's ability to manage and utilize the loan effectively, whether the borrower ability to manage the loan effectively or not. So when it comes to the capability, so such a borrower has to utilize the loan amount only for the purpose for what they have taken the loan. For example, if it is an education loan, so such a loan which should be used only for the education purpose. If the loan is taken for construction of a building, that should be taken only for construction of a building. Okay, so that is what is the capability, because borrower's ability to manage and utilize the loan effectively. They have to utilize the loan in an effective manner, then only they can repay the loan without any difficulties. And then another one is the capacity, the borrower's financial capacity to repay the loan, whether such a borrower has the financially sound borrower in order to repay the financially sound borrower in order to repay the loan amount without any difficulties. So when it comes to the key factors in credit appraisal, first they will look into the character of the customer, borrower, but then which is based on the collateral security. Then what is the capability of the customer and the capacity of the customer should be taken into account. So that is the credit factors in credit appraisal. So these cases we have already discussed there in the principles of lending in my previous video. The next one is the process. So first process, what they will do, so they have to financial statement analysis, reviewing the borrower's financial documents. So whether it is in corporate, they should have a audited financial statement. So such a business, such a banker has to verify that audited financial statement. If the audited financial statement pretending the profit of the company, then they can avail the loan facilities. Likewise, when it comes to that audited financial statement of an individual taxpayer as an assessee, as an individual people, what is their income statement, what is their asset and what will the liabilities. So what is, how much assets they have acquired, what is their asset value, how much liabilities they have. Apart from this, if they have any other kind of the loan or any kind of the credit card, so in such a case, whether they repaid that card, that closed that card, whether they can able to repay the present loan. So everything they will check it. So that is the financial statement analysis. Market prospects. So what is the potential success of the borrower's product or services in the market? For example, when such a product is a what is that, what we can say that this such a corporate people, they are getting the loans and advances against their business. In such a case, the banker has to clearly examine about the what is the borrowing capacity, what is the level of their business, whether such a business is making a profit or loss, what is the market potential of a particular product. Based on that only they need to provide the loans. Then business viability, evaluating the borrower's business model and its sustainability. What is the business model they are making? When it comes to the business model, they have to have the 7S McKinsey's framework. So what is the strategy when it comes to the business model? They have to think about the 7S. 7 is McKinsey's framework they should follow. So as a banker, they should follow with the such a kind of a case. So that is nothing but the what is the strategy they are having. Structure. What is the structure of a business? Structure, system, style, they have to follow. This is one model. What is the structure of their business? Okay, what is the structure of the business? What is their style? When it comes to that market, this one borrower's business model. When it comes to the business model, they have to scrutinize with their what is the structure they are making in order to attract the customer. So strategy, structure, okay, style, leadership style. What is the leadership style? They have strategy, structure, style, shared value, staff and skills. So shared value, staffs and skills. For example, if they are providing loan to the corporate customer, they need to check this one. What is their market strategy? What is their business strategy? What is the nature of the business structure? Whether such a hierarchy is on a centralized structure or decentralized structure. What is their leadership style? Whether it is autocratic leadership or bureaucratic leadership. What is their shared value? That is what is the values which the organization earned from the society. Then finally, what is their staff? What is the staff strength as well as the skill of those staffs? How many employees are there? So what is their skill and nature of the employee? So whether these people, what is the skill of the manager? What is the skill of the management? So these kind of a cases we can say that the business models. So what is the business model they are following? So according to that business model, whether they can make a profit or not. If they have the better strategy than the competitor, they can make a profit. In such a case, banker can ready to avail the loan, would have given the loan to that particular kind of the company. When it comes to the strategy, then when it comes to the shared value, what is the shared value of the particular company in the market? So when it comes to the style, what is the organization style they are using? What is the structure of the organization? Whether authority will be taken with the one hand or authority will spread over all the people. Who is responsible to repay the loan amount? Okay, for example, when it comes to the partnership firm, so either all the partners or any one partner can become a liable of the partnership loan. So those things and all they have to then decide based on that what is the business model they are making. Accordingly they have to make a decision to whether they can repay the whether they can have a ability to repay the loan or not. So that is the process. Then credit performance, ensuring the loan will perform as a performing asset. It should not be turned as a should not be turned as a should not be turned as a non-performing asset. Turned as non-performing asset. So non-performing asset, the loan amount, that is the borrower loan amount, does not recover by the bank more than 180 days. Okay, in such a case, such a loan will be turned as a non-performing asset. If the loan is turned as a non-performing asset, again there will be a doubt. Such asset, there will be a chances of turning into the bad assets or doubtful assets. If the asset is turned into the bad and doubtful assets, then obviously they can't recover the loan amount from the customer. So it should be in a performing in nature. What is the performance? Is nothing but the repayment. without a kind of any, the customer does not disturb the repayment schedule, does not disturb the repayment schedule. For example, every month 10th is the repayment, does not disturb the repayment schedule. So every month 10th is the repayment schedule, means within that 10th customer has the ability to repay the loan amount. So that is the credit performance. So when it comes to that evaluation of when it comes to the credit worthiness, key factors in credit appraisal, what is the process we have discussed? One is the financial statement analysis, another one is the market prospects, what is the business viability they are using, and what is the credit performance. Then another one is the evaluation. So evaluation of that from judgment to risk appraisal. So from judgment to risk appraisal. So the focus has shifted from subjective evaluation. What is that? They have to focus their evaluation from the subjective evaluation to assessing the risk associated with the credit appraisal. When they are doing the credit appraisal, what all the risk is associated with that particular borrower or borrower's business, that they have to check. When it comes to the case, when they are providing the loans and advances, their perspective which goes with the judgment perspective to risk appraisal perspective. What are all the systematic risk which is associated with that, and what are all the unsystematic risk which associated with that. So that they have to think over before providing any kind of or before lending loans and advances to the business people or as well as the individual borrower. So objective measurement. Appraisal has more data driven and objective rather than solely judgment based. It is not a solely judgment based on the availability of your data. As a banker have a ability to decide whether such a borrower can have a ability to repay the loan amount or not. So it should be in a subjective perspective to objective measurement, whether it can be served the objective of a banking business. So that is the evaluation. Then next we are going to discuss about the credit appraisal techniques. So what are all the credit appraisal process is there, that we are going to discuss. So when it comes to the credit appraisal process, there are different kinds of the credit appraisal process is given. So totally 7 cases are given under the credit appraisal process. We are going to discuss one by one. Borrower identification and verification, that is the first one. What is the identification? Identification is nothing but such a person is identified through their business. Business or profession. Person can be identified through their business or profession. When it comes to the business people, that is an entrepreneur, or as well as such a people or the manager of a company, that is their affiliation. They can become an entrepreneur, or they are the manager of the company, that is their affiliation, or assistant manager or managing director of a company. Everybody there, that is the identification of a business corporate customers. Then when it comes to the customers as an individual, so their identity like a doctor, so that their profession has been defined: doctor, lawyers, auditors, teachers, okay, engineers, like this is the identity of the individual. When it comes to that other category of a people, whether such a women, self-help customer, self-help people, as a homemaker, whether they can establish their entrepreneurial mindset. So this is the affiliation of the customers. Okay, no? So these cases and all, they have to decide what is the borrower identification. So this is the identification. These are all the various identification of the borrowers based on the individual as well as the corporate of borrowers. And they have to verify confirm the identity. They have to confirm their identity and the credibility of the borrower. Such a borrower can able to repay the loan amount, can able to repay loan, can able to repay the loan or not, can able to repay the loan or not. So that is the credibility of the borrower. Okay, so borrower identification and verification is very much important before sanctioning the loan. Assessing the business. Evaluate the borrower's business operations and viability. What is the borrower's business operations? How that business is going on? Whether it attract the market attraction. Whether they have satisfied their customer. If they satisfied the customer, what is the volume of customers are available for that particular product. Okay, how the suppliers mindset about that particular business. So they have to think over all the stakeholders of a business. So they have to evaluate the borrower's business operations and viability. When we are seeing about the business operations and viability, it can be proven through the various stakeholders of a business. So such a case, whether such a business is whether it is a B2B business, business to business or business to corporate, this thing and all bankers should verify then before sanctioning the loans to the particular kind of a customer. Then understanding what is their credit requirements, determine the specifics of the credit request. Understanding credit requirements. They should understand that what is the credit requirement of that particular borrower. They have to determine the specific of the credit request. How much the credit request will be raised by the borrower. So the borrower can ask, so I request 50 lakhs, 60 lakh, 70 lakh or 1 crore. Whether such a borrower, whatever the request they made it, such a request has been, what is that valid or not, that they have to check before sanctioning the loan. Then due diligence report, prepare a comprehensive report based on the evaluation. Based on the evaluation, they have to prepare about the what is the nature of the customer, what is the how they are making the business, what is the credit worthiness of the particular customer. They have to prepare the report of the customer and submit the same to the evaluation purpose. Then that evaluation team has to appraise the scheme, then select appropriate exposure scheme, choose the best suitable credit scheme or exposure level. So this team has to appraise the customer's case. Then once after the appraisal, they can suggest to the customer which kind of the loan is suitable for them, what is the credit scheme or how much the loan amount will be sanctioned to them. So this one will be given. Then finalizing terms and conditions, settle the terms and conditions of the credit facility. So whatever the credit facilities are there, for that they have to set the terms and conditions of the credit facilities. So these are all the various credit appraisal process. When it comes to the credit appraisal process, one is the understanding the credit. First one is the assessing the business of the borrowers. Second one, understanding the credit requirement, how much the amount is required for them. Then they have to prepare the due diligence, what is the credit request and what is the credit worthiness of the such a borrower has been discussed in the second point. Based on that, they have to prepare the comprehensive report based on the evaluation what they have made. Then select the appropriate exposure, whatever the scheme, whatever the credit scheme is which is suitable for them, they can suggest. Then finally they have to finalizing the terms and condition for settlement of the credit facilities. So this is the credit appraisal process. So next one is the validation of proposal. How to validate the proposal? There are 4 ways. There are 4 steps to validate the proposal. First one is the verification with the supporting documents. So what are the supporting documents which should be submitted by the borrower? It should be clearly verified. Cross-check information provided by the applicant with the official documents. Whatever the official documents provided by the borrower or the applicant. Till sanctioning a loan, such a person is called it as the applicant only. So they have to cross verify whether they are submitting the original documents, that is the relevant document, that document should be verified. So if the verified document is a relevant only without any kind of the fake document then they can sanction the loan. So first one is they have to verify the document. Then personally they have to visit the applicant's premises to confirm the business activities and management quality. So they have to visit the applicant business to confirm their business. அவங்க வந்து applicationல நான் இந்த business பண்றேன் அப்படினு கொடுத்திருப்பாங்க, whether they are doing that business or not, what is the viability of a business, what is the management quality of that particular business has to be verified. Approval and licensing, verify all required approvals and license. They have to verify the all approvals as well as the license, whether they have taken a license for their business, such should be discussed. borrower's authority, ensure the applicant has the legal authority to request and sign the loan document. So ensure the applicantக்கு வந்து அந்த legal authority இருக்கா loan documentல sign பண்றதுக்கு. Why? Because such an applicant does not convicted against any law. அவர் வந்து கிரிமினல் லாலையோ இல்லை எது மூலமாவோ அவங்களுக்கு வந்து அவங்க மேலே வந்து எந்த விதமான கேசஸும் இருக்கக்கூடாது. அப்படி இருந்தால் மட்டும்தான் they can become eligible to become a borrower of a particular bank. So borrower's authority. So there are 4 cases we discussed. First one is the verification with the supporting documents. Once after verification of the supporting document, bankers must visit the premises of the applicant, that is the field verification. So once after the field verification is over, they have to check their approval and licensing. How many years they have the license, whether license which is there in a running or as well as the which is expired. Okay, then borrower's authority to sign that a particular document. Then another one is the next we are going to discuss about the credit risk. What is the credit risk? The risk of borrower default due to business failure or intentional misconduct. Because of the business failure அலையோ இல்லை அவங்களால வந்து intentionally வேணுக்குனே வந்து அமௌண்ட் வந்து பே பண்ணாமல் மிஸ்கண்டக்ட் பண்ணாங்க அப்படின்னா அதுக்கு பேர் தான் கிரெடிட் ரிஸ்க். அசஸ்மெண்ட் ரூல் யூட்டிலைஸ் கிரெடிட் ரிப்போர்ட்ஸ் அண்ட் கிரெடிட் ரேட்டிங்ஸ் ஃப்ரம் ஏஜென்சி. தெர் ஆர் so many credit rating agencies are there. One of the famous credit rating agencies are Appraisal. So Appraisal, that is one of the credit rating agency. So these agencies provide the details about the credit worthiness of the customers. So Appraisal is one of the credit agency, such a credit agency which provides the worthiness of the customers, which provides the what is the credit worthiness of the customers. So such a credit worthiness, such a rating is helpful to the banker whether they can provide the debt or not. Credit Rating Information Services of India Limited. Appraisal is nothing but the Credit Rating Information Services of India Limited. Credit Rating Information Services of India Limited. Credit Rating, Appraisal is nothing but the Credit Rating Information Services of India Limited. So Appraisal is nothing but the risk of borrower, what is the credit reports or as well as the credit worthiness of the borrowers. So for that, credit report or credit rating agencies are there. One of the famous credit rating agencies is Appraisal. So Appraisal is nothing but the Credit Rating Information Services of India Limited. So these company provide the what is the credit rating of a particular customer. Okay, now if the customer already taken a loan, such a loan has been repaid properly, their credit rating which goes up. So when the credit rating are higher in nature, so such a borrower is a prompt borrower. If the credit rating is a lower in nature, such a borrower does not a prompt borrower. So that is the assessment tool, they can use it. So factor influencing risk, one is the internal factors, another one is the external factors. So internal factors, poor management, financial decision, they have not ability to take a better financial decision, and marketing failures. When it comes to the external factors, market conditions and economic changes, so these are, there are two cases. One is the controllable in nature, internal factors that we can control, that is in our hand, controllable in nature. When it comes to the external factors, that is uncontrollable in nature. So when it comes to that external factor, that is the market conditions. So prevailing market condition, we can't pretending the market conditions, whether sometimes it may goes up, sometimes it may comes down, we can't say that. For example, main example, we can say that the gold, the prices of a gold, it may move up as well as the comes down. When it comes to the share prices, like when it comes to the business, market conditions may vary, which depends upon the kinds of the business cycle. Okay, then economical changes. If there is any changes in the political and economic changes, if there any changes in the political, that is the central as well as the state level, that will impact on their business, that will impact on their borrowers business. So these and all they have to consider whether external factors in risk is associated. One is the external factor, another one is the internal factor. When it comes to the controllability in nature, these external factor we can't control, but internal factor which is in our hand they can control. Okay na? So this case they have to clearly define, they have to clearly identify with that before sanctioning the loan. So what is that credit risk rating? So that is the definition. Access credit risk by assigning ratings based on the various parameters. Based on the various parameters, they can assign the ratings. So one is the components: financial standing, management quality, and non-quantitative factors. So financial standing, evaluate the borrower's financial performance. There they have to evaluate the what is the borrower's financial performance. Financial performance is nothing but it can be determined through their business, whether their business can make a profit or loss. And when it comes to an individual, based on their income, we can decide about the what is the financial stability and financial performance of the borrower. Then management quality, rate management expertise and effectiveness. What is the expertise of the management, how they can effectively manage the business in order to get a profit. What is the effectiveness of their management in order to make a profit. So before bankers sanction the loan to that particular corporate customer, they have to know about whether the viability are there in the business through the better management or not. Non-quantitative factor, assess factors not easily measured statistically. So when it comes to the non-quantitative factors, that is customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction. So what is the goodwill of a firm? What is the loyalty? What is the trademark? Okay na? So this and all we can say that the intangible assets, so that is call it as the non-quantitative in nature. Okay, so these and all they can decide how the customers were satisfied about that particular product in the market. Okay, what is the goodwill of your firm? What is the loyalty of your firm? So this and all can check with the borrower. The banker can check this and all about the borrower before sanctioning the loan. So that is else it will be a risky only when that is the credit risk rating. When these cases, goodwill, loyalty, such a non-quantitative cases are very high in nature, such a business are in a peak, they can make a profit. Whatever the loan they have taken from the bank, then they can have a ability to repay that loan amount. So that is the credit risk rating. Criteria for decision. What are the criteria they have to use? Credit rating score must meet the minimum score set by the bank for consideration. So அவங்களோட லோன் வந்து கன்சிடர் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னா they have to meet the minimum credit score. Okay, this credit score vary from one customer to another customer based on the nature of the business, based on the nature of the amount applied, based on the nature of the loan applied, everything which is come into the picture. Compliance with the bank policy. The purpose of the loan should align with the bank's credit policy. So whatever the loan sanctioned by the banker, it should be approved by the particular bank management. It should be aligned with the what is that bank's credit policy. Concentration limits. Ensure the loan does not exceed the concentration limits set for groups, industries or individual exposures. Individual person or a group of a person or industries or otherwise individual exposure, whatever the concentrated limit will be there, more than that banker does not have a right to sanction that loan amount. That is the concentration. For example, such a borrower's earnings per annum, that is 1 year is 30 lakhs, means loan should be sanctioned within 30 lakhs, not beyond of that customer's income. Okay, so that is the concentration limit. Rejection area, failure to meet any three criteria results. So any three, either credit rating score were very poor and complaints, their loan does not match with the bank policy, and their concentration limit is very, what is that concentration limit does not match with the banker's limit. In such a case they can reject the loan. So that is the criteria for decision. Next one is the aspects of appraisal. Already we have discussed with the principles of lending. Same thing we are going to discuss. Credit worthiness of the borrower, assessments of the borrower's ability and reliability to repay the loan amount. So அந்த borrowersக்கு எவ்வளோ எபிலிட்டி இருக்கு, அவங்களால அந்த லோன் அமௌண்ட் வந்து பே பண்ண முடியுமா, அவங்க வந்து ரிலையபிள் கஸ்டமராக இருப்பாங்களா அப்படிங்கிறது. ஸோ ஃபார் இண்டிவிஜுவல் தட் இன்வால்வ் செக்கிங் கிரெடிட் ஹிஸ்ட்ரி via credit information. They have to check the credit history. Already we have I have told, right, CIBIL, Credit Information Bureau of India Limited. So that is one thing. Then for businesses financial statement, when it comes to the business, they can verify the financial statement of the business, whether such a financial statement has the good turnover as well as the profitability of the financial statements are good, then it will be fine and good, and verified through sources like CERSAI. CERSAI is nothing but the the Central Registry of Scrutinization and Asset Construction and Security Interest of India. Central Registry of Securitization, SARFAESI Act. Central Registry of CERSAI. Central Registry of Securitization, Asset Reconstruction, Asset Reconstruction and the Security Interest of India, and the Security Interest of India. So these are all the certain agency which provide the credit worthiness of the customer. Then they have to think about the ROC, return on capital. Okay, return on capital, they have to think whether how much is the amount of the capital they have invested, what is the return on capital. So that which defines the credit worthiness of the borrowers. Then another one, CRELIC. CRELIC, Central Repository of Information on Large Credits. Central Repository of Information on Central Repository of Information on large credits. If they have the huge amount of a credit, so their name will be displayed there in the central repository. Through that central repository, they can check with the credit rating of the customer. If the credit rating is high, the risk of a banker is very low. They can easily recover the amount from the customer. If that credit rating is less, it's very difficult to recover the loan amount from the customer. So that is the credit worthiness. So first aspects of the appraisal is the credit worthiness. Another one is the character, evaluation of the borrower's trustworthiness. That is the character of the case, including checking the borrowers, அவங்க பேக்ரவுண்டை பற்றி பார்க்குறது, அவங்களோட ரெப்புடேஷன் எப்படி இருக்குது, இன்டெகிரிட்டி த்ரூ மார்க்கெட் இன்கொயர்ஸ் அண்ட் டியூ டெலிஜென்ஸ், அவங்க டிஸ்பிளே பண்ணியிருக்கிற அந்த டியூ டெலிஜென்ஸ் ரிப்போர்ட் எல்லாம் கரெக்டாக இருக்கா அப்படிங்கிறது பார்க்குறது. Next one is the first we have discussed about the character, then credit worthiness, character of a borrower, then capacity, borrower's ability to generate through cash flow to repay the loan, how they are generating the income, how they are generating the inflow of a cash in order to repay the loan amount. So that is the capacity of the borrower. So this capacity can be assessed through their financial stability, income sources, past financial performance, this and all, whether they have taken a loan previously, whether such a loan amount repaid properly or not, what is the income sources, what are the various sources of an income, what is their financial stability, whether such a person has the regular income. So financial stability is nothing but whether such a applicant has the regular income or not. If it is a regular income, what is their income source? It is from the whether they are working okay na, as an employee of a particular company, or they are doing their own business. Then they have to think about the past financial performance. If you have already taken a loan, how they are repaying the loan. For business, past financial statement and future cash flow projections are considered. This is for the individual customer. When it comes to the corporate customer as well as the business, they have to consider the past financial statement of a particular business and what is the future cash flow. So that is the capacity. So first we have discussed with the credit worthiness, what is the character, then capacity. Next one is the capital, the borrower's financial strength and net worth, how much amount of the capital they invested their business. Okay, so that is the borrower's financial strength. And what is the net worth? Okay, out of the, that is we can say that the what is the return on capital, what is the return on investment they made it. That's a return on investment which helps them to decide the net worth of the borrower. So assessment, reviewing the borrower's equity investment in the business. A higher capital base usually indicates the lower risk. If the capital is huge, risk is low. If the capital is low but they have sanctioned the more amount of the loan than the capital, then risk is high. So that is the capital. Then what is the collateral? Assets pledged by the borrower. Whatever the assets, எந்த அசட்டை வந்து அவங்க அடமானமா வச்சு லோன் வாங்குறாங்களோ அதுக்கு பேர் தான் collateral security. இந்த வந்து collateral should have a value, be enforceable. அது வந்து law படி அது அப்ரூவ் ஆயிருக்கணும், be free from legal encumbrances. அதுல வந்து எந்த விதமான சட்ட சிக்கல்களும் இருக்கக்கூடாது. Factors such as age is one of the important. What is the condition of that particular people? Technological relevance of the assets. Everything should be. What is the age of that particular property? What all the conditions are there? What are the technological relevances which will be there in that collateral? Everything should be taken into account. So here we have discussed about the first two cases: credit worthiness, character, capacity, capital, collateral, and then conditions. So what is that economic conditions? அவங்களோட அந்த economical நிலைமை எப்படி இருக்கு, இண்டஸ்ட்ரியோட நிலைமை எப்படி இருக்கு, affecting the borrower's ability to repay. So whether these conditions are supporting the borrowers to repay the loan amount or not. Assessment includes reviewing the purpose of the loan, and the purpose of the loan என்ன இருக்கு, industry trend எப்படி போயிட்டு இருக்கு, and economic conditions. Everything should be taken into account. Then another one is the cash flow, the borrower's ability to generate sufficient cash to meet loan repayments. Cash flow, what is the inflow as well as the outflow of the loan amount. So such a inflow and outflow of the loan amount, how it is helpful to generate the loan, how they can meet the loan repayment. So that is the cash flow. So preferences is for cash flow generated from business operations. Other sources like asset sales or additional borrowing are less favorable for individuals. Evaluation, how they can evaluate the what is the inflow and outflow of the cash. So when they are assessing the inflow and outflow of the cash, what is their business operation, what are the other sources to make the profit, only from the amount which comes from the business profit or any other cases are there. Everything should be checked. Okay, now when it comes to the individual customer, what is their salaried income? When it comes to the professional people, what is their professional earnings, which is applicable for the lawyers, then doctors, engineers, auditors, these people, engineers, auditors, those who are using with their intellectual skills. Through that intellectual skills, what is their professional earnings? So this is the cash flow. Cash flow which vary from the corporate customers to the individual customer. Again with the individual customer, then customer of an employee or as well as the professional people, that they have to consider. Then next one is this is given in that diagram. So what is this one is given 7 C's in credit appraisal. Already we have discussed about that 7 C's. What is the credit worthiness? அவங்களோட credit history எப்படி இருக்கு, அவங்களோட rating எப்படி இருக்கு, credit rating, appraisal rating எப்படி இருக்கு, அந்த rating if it is the good rating, then the credit worthiness of the borrower is good. If it is a bad rating, then credit worthiness of a borrower is bad. In such a case, banker think twice before sanctioning the loan. What is the character? Evaluate the borrower's reputation and integrity. எந்த அளவுக்கு அவங்க உண்மையா இருக்காங்க அப்படிங்கிறது. Capacity, analyze the borrower's ability to generate a cash flow for loan repayment. அந்த லோனை ரீபே பண்றதுக்கு அவங்களால கேஷ் ஜெனரேட் பண்ண முடியுமா, அதுதான் அவங்களோட capacity. Capital, review the borrower's financial strength and equity investment. What is the equity investment made in their business? Okay, what is the financial strength of the borrower? This should be checked. That is one of the 7 C's. collateral, that is pledged, whatever the assets which is pledged are valuable and enforceable, which is enforceable by law. Condition, they have to check with the economical as well as the industrial condition related to the loan purpose. என்ன பர்பஸ்க்காக லோன் வாங்கியிருக்காங்க, அவங்களோட எக்கனாமிக் கண்டிஷன் எப்படி இருக்கு, இண்டஸ்ட்ரி கண்டிஷன். கேஷ் ஃப்ளோ, focus on cash from operations for loan. So they have to focus the cash flow from operations, what is the repayment capability of that particular customers. So another one is the method of assessment of a loan. So overview, there are two kinds of the loan. One is the commercial loan, another one is the retail loans. Requires specialized skill for assessment. இந்த லோனை வந்து அசஸ் பண்றதுக்கு அந்த பேங்கருக்கு ஸ்பெஷலைஸ்டு ஸ்கில் இருக்கணும். They have to disperse the loan based on the assessment. So once after dispersing of the loan, அந்த லோனை கொடுத்ததுக்கு அப்புறம் அவங்கள மானிட்டர் பண்ணணும். Often handled by specialized branches or central teams. They have to have the certain central teams, such as central team monitor their loan repaying cycle of that particular borrower, whether they repay the loan promptly or not. If they are not promptly repayment of the loan, for what they can't repay the loan, that they have to assess. Retail loans, standardized and technology driven, involving standardized application forms, processing and monitoring. So these are all the overview. One is the commercial loans, another one is the retail loan. So types of loan assessment and methods. Loan for business enterprises. When they are providing the loan for the business enterprises, they are providing the two kinds of the loan. One kind of the loan is the working capital purposes, in order to meet the day-to-day expenses of a business, that is working capital purpose. So working capital, there are two cases. One is the gross working capital, another one is the net working capital. When it comes to the gross working capital, that is nothing but the current asset. Then net working capital is nothing but the excess of current assets over current liabilities. Whether they can manage these cases and also, that is the working capital purpose, in order to meet the day-to-day expenses. For that purpose, so in order, every business, they want to have a proper liquidity position in the firm. Such a liquidity position they can raise it through by way of borrowing the working capital loan. That is for the business purpose. Another one is the capital expenditure, in order to long-term investment for acquiring a fixed assets. In order to investment made into the fixed assets like land and building, plant and machinery, furniture and equipments, furniture and fittings, okay, equipments, this and all which belongs to the capital expenditure. So such a capital expenditure is a fixed assets, so it should be repaid. Okay, so when it comes to the business purpose, loans are given for the business enterprises for working capital purpose. Another one is the capital expenditure purpose. When it comes to the individual, for housing purpose, loans for purchasing or constructing a homes. One is the purchasing a home or as well as the construction of a homes, loan will be provided. Another one is the vehicle loans, so that is two-wheeler or as well as the three-wheeler, four-wheeler loan. This belongs to the consumer durables, so loans for purchasing vehicles of consumer goods. So that is for the individual. For housing purpose, another one is the vehicle or consumer durables. So these are all the loans for individuals. Then assessment of the working capital. What is the working capital? Funds needed for the daily operations of a business. That is called the working capital financing, covering current assets and current liabilities, which should be covered with the current assets and current liabilities. So these current assets and current liabilities are nothing but those assets are easily converted into cash. Those assets are easily converted into cash. எந்த assets எல்லாம் நம்ம ஈஸியாக கேஷாக கன்வெர்ட் பண்ண முடியுமோ அந்த அசட்ஸை தான் வந்து நம்ம என்னன்னு சொல்லுவோம் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோன்னா current assets. Those assets are easily converted into the cash. Those assets are called it as the current assets. So for example, debtors, bills receivable, okay, then prepaid expenses, stock, okay, bills receivable, that cash, short-term investment, this and all considered as the current assets. When it comes to the current liability, creditors, bills payable, bank overdraft, okay, outstanding expenses, these and all which is called it as the current liabilities. So working capital, they have to maintain these assets always should have a liquidity in nature. So that is called it as the working capital. So in order to assessment of working capital, in order to meet these working capital requirement, manufacturing or as well as the business people, they can take a loan. So That is one case. Category, there are two cases. One is the working capital and as a fixed capital, another one is the working capital. So investment made in the long term assets like land and building, plant and machinery, furnitures and fixtures, office equipments, everything. Working capital for in order to meet the short term operational needs, that is which is a liquidity in nature. Such a liquidity, it should be in a short term, then only in a current asset, which is considered only the short term investment, not for the long term investment. In order to needs like in order to purchase the raw material, wages, whether they can able to pay the wages to their employees. For that, in order to meet these requirements, they can apply for the working capital loan. So working capital, there are two cases. One is the gross working capital. Total investments made in the current assets is the gross working capital. So merit total current asset investment and operational needs. Net working capital is nothing but the difference between the current asset and current liabilities, which is nothing but the excess of current assets over current liabilities. Excess of current assets over current liability. So net working capital is equal to current assets minus current liability. So whether firm's ability to meet the short term obligations with their provides a liquidity margin. So that is the net working capital. There are two cases. One is the gross working capital, another one is the net working capital. Gross working capital is nothing but the total investment made in current asset only. Okay, na? Total assets made in the current assets in order to meet the operational needs. When it comes to the net working capital, excess of current asset over current liability, which is easily say that the current assets minus current liability. So based on the current asset, how they are meeting the short term obligations like liability. So that is the net working capital. Then working capital gap, differences between the total asset and the current liability excluding the bank borrowings is a working capital gap. So they have to determine the working capital limits. A bank will provide it to a borrower. And the borrower க்கு எந்த அளவுக்கு அந்த working capital loan வந்து sanction பண்ணணும் அப்படிங்கறத banker should decide. That is called it as the working capital gap. So what are the various components of the working capital? One is the raw material, stock in process, that is called it as the work in progress. Work in progress, that they have to check what is the raw material, whether such raw materials are properly apply for that, goes for the work in progress. Then finally it should be converted into the finished product which goes to the stores. Then consumer stores, whether it reaches to the consumer stores, what is the receivables, how many sundry debtors are there, and other expenses. So these are all the various components of the working capital. How much raw material procured, so based on that raw material, how much the work in progress is going on. Based on that work in progress, how much the finished goods will be there, whether such a finished goods properly went to the godown, that is the supply chain. So whether from the supply chain to whether it reaches to the wholesaler, retailer and the final consumer. When it reaches to the final consumer, what are the other expenses are there, who are all the receivables and sundry debtors are there, and other expenses will be there. Everything is the components of a working capital. Banker should check whether these components are working effectively or not in order to achieve the profitability of a business. Once the business make a profit, then only they can repay the loan amount. So this is a cyclical fluctuations. So factors influencing working capital needs, which depends upon the nature of a business. Working capital need is not remain same for all the business. It depends upon the what is the nature of the business they are carrying. And also the size of a business is also one of the important case to decide the working capital requirements of a business. What is their production policy? Then seasonal variation. So some of the product as a seasonal based product. When it comes to the seasonal variations, so the working capital needs also will increase or decrease. For example, when it comes to the summer season, so people always likes with the cold items, like instead of coffee as well as the tea, they will be preferred with the ice creams or any kind of the juices. So this and all which is very popular in nature. So in such a case, this period their working capital requirement is very huge for this product. When it comes to the winter season, working capital requirement of the product are very less. When it comes to the winter season, working capital requirement of that product is very less. When it comes to the summer season, the working capital requirement of that particular manufacturer which will be very high. So such a seasonal variations of a product also much decide about what is the working capital requirement of the customer. Then operating or as well as the working cycle. When it comes to the operating or working cycle, it like this. First one is the procuring a raw material. When it comes to the operations, so they have to check with the first one is the procuring raw material. Okay, once after the raw material should be goes for the work in progress. Once after that work in progress, it will goes to the finished goods. Once it goes for the finished goods, it goes to the stores. From the stores, it goes to the wholesaler, then retailer, then finally it goes to the consumer. Whether here the product end, again the business people they have to procure. It's a cyclic process. So what is the operating working cycle of the particular manufacturing industry, whether they can meet the requirement of the customer, based on that whether they can meet the profit, they can acquire a profit. So cyclical definition: the time for purchasing raw material to producing goods, selling and receiving the cash when they are making. So it starts from the procuring a raw material, work in progress, finished goods, then it will be stored, then it goes to the wholesaler, retailer, customer. From there finally they can make a profit. So this is the working capital cycle. That is the working capital cycle, which includes the stock level at various stage, time taken for payment processing as well as the transit. Everything should be considered. So computation of the operating cycle components. How to compute? What is the stock management? Keeping stock ahead of need. So that is, stock is one of the important working capital requirements of a business. That is called it as the closing stock. Mainly when it comes to the working capital, we should consider the closing stock, not for the opening stock. So these closing stock again will be converted into the opening stock of the next year. So maintaining, how they are maintaining the inventory of raw material, work in progress and finished goods. Cash realization, time taken for payment of collection after sales. So how many days it will be required. So that is the cash conversion cycle, whether they are making the business, how many period which is required to converting their materials into the cash, converting to their business in order to make a profit. So that is the working capital, the operating cycle components. That is also one of the operating cycle. So some formula is there for calculating the computation will be there. First one is the raw material storage period. How to calculate the raw material storage period? There are two cases. One is the average stock of raw material, average daily raw material consumption. What is the average stock of raw material and what is the average daily raw material construction? So why they have to calculate? Over utilization of a raw material also a problem, and under utilization of a raw material also a problem. They have to use the optimum utilization of the raw material. So they have to use this certain formula. Average stock of raw material. Average stock is nothing but the opening stock plus closing stock divided by 2. So this is the formula which is given for the average stock of raw material. So average is nothing but the adding the number of items, adding the all items divided by total number of items. When it comes to the stock to the business, only two cases. One is the opening stock and the closing stock. So average stock of raw material is equal to opening stock plus closing stock divided by 2. Average daily raw material consumption. So as the annual consumption of raw material divided by 360 days. Daily, how many days? So Saturday, Sundays will be removed, or 5 public holidays will be removed out of 365 days. So 360 days should be considered for the calculation. Annual consumption of a raw material divided by 360. Okay, that is the average daily raw material consumption. So divided by this two, we can get the raw material storage period. Then working capital conversion period, work in progress conversion period, work in progress, sorry, WIP is nothing but the work in progress conversion period, work in progress conversion period. So that is average stock of work in progress and annual cost of production and average daily cost of production. So first one is the average stock of work in progress. This is the formula for calculating average stock of work in progress. Average stock of work in progress divided by average daily cost of production. Daily and the goods are produced பண்றதுக்கு எவ்வளவு cost involve ஆகுது அப்படினு. Average stock of work in progress already we discussed. Opening stock of work in progress, average stock of work in progress க்கு இதுதான் formula. Opening stock of work in progress plus closing stock of work in progress divided by 2. Okay, average is nothing but the opening stock of work in progress plus closing stock of work in progress divided by 2. average daily cost of production. So opening stock of opening stock of work in progress plus annual consumption of raw material, manufacturing cost such as wages, salary, power and fuel, etc. plus depreciation. இதெல்லாம் என்ன வரும் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோம்னா opening stock of work in progress. Opening stock of work in progress which includes this one only. Opening stock of work in progress which includes opening stock of work in progress, annual consumption of raw material. ஒரு வருஷத்துக்கு எவ்வளோ raw material வந்து பயன்படுத்துறாங்க, அவங்களோட manufacturing cost அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோம்னா whatever the cost which is occurring inside the manufacturing premises such as wages, salary, power and fuel. Wages to the employee, salary for the workers, power and fuel for the machines and other cases, and depreciation minus closing stock of work in progress. So that is the opening stock plus closing stock divided by 2. What is the average daily cost of production is equal to annual cost of production divided by 2. That is the average daily cost of production. This is the formula. So one is the raw material storage period. They have to calculate and they have to decide whether such a raw material storage period is viable. Then work in progress conversion period, it should be in a positive. Then finished goods storage period. Average stock of finished goods, annual cost of sales and average daily cost of sales. So average stock of finished goods divided by average daily cost of sales. Then like average stock of finished goods is nothing but the opening stock of finished goods plus closing stock of finished goods divided by 2. Then what is that opening stock of finished goods is nothing but the opening stock which includes opening stock of finished goods. What is the annual cost of production? ஒரு இயர்ல வந்து எவ்வளோ cost of production, அவங்களோட excise duty என்ன இருக்கு, selling and distribution cost, general administration cost, finance cost எல்லாம் minus closing stock of finished goods. Then annual average daily cost of sales is equal to, this is the formula, annual cost of sales divided by 360. Okay, this is the this is one is the raw material, work in progress and finished goods. What are the computation? Then average collection period. What is that average collection period? For example, if they have given the loan amount to the consumer, that is the borrower, what is the average collection period? For example, the debtors, okay na, average collection period where average balance of sundry debtors or the average collection period. Average daily credit sales, how much average credit sales? So the formula is average balance of sundry debtors. What is the average balance of sundry debtors divided by average daily credit sales? ஒரு நாளைக்கு average எவ்வளோ credit sale ஆகும் அப்படிங்கிறது. When it comes to the average sundry debtors, opening sundry debtors, that is opening balance of the receivables plus closing balance of the receivables divided by 2. The average daily credit sales is equal to annual credit sales divided by 360. Okay, if the average balance, average collection period is less, then the business is viable in nature. நல்ல profit making business. கடனுக்கு கொடுக்குறாங்க, அந்த கடனை திரும்ப வாங்கிடுறாங்க இமீடியட்டா. ஸோ அந்த கடனை அவங்க திரும்ப வாங்கினாங்கன்னா இந்த பிஸ்னஸ் பேங்க் கிட்டேருந்து எவ்வளோ கடன் வாங்கியிருக்காங்களோ அதை அவங்களால ரீபே பண்ண முடியும். இதே ஆவரேஜ் பேமெண்ட் பீரியட் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோன்னா, இந்த பிஸ்னஸ் பீப்புள் வந்து எனி அமௌண்ட் ஆஃப் எ லோன் விச் இஸ் டேக்கன். ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் ரா மெட்டீரியலை வந்து கிரெடிட்டுக்கு பர்ச்சேஸ் பண்ணி அந்த ரா மெட்டீரியலை அந்த காஸ்ட்டை வந்து பே பண்ணுறாங்களா, அதுதான் average balance of sundry creditors, average daily credit purchase. What is that? Average balance of sundry creditors divided by average daily credit purchase. ஒரு நாளைக்கு எத்தனை பேர் ஆவரேஜாக கிரெடிட் பர்ச்சேஸ் பண்ணிக்கிறாங்க, அந்த கிரெடிட் பர்ச்சேஸ் பண்ணக்கூடிய கஸ்டமர் வந்து ரீபே பண்ணுறாங்களா, அவங்களுக்கு ரீபேமெண்ட் ஷெட்யூல் எவ்வளோ, ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் வித்தின் 1 monthக்குள்ளே அவங்க ரீபே பண்ணிடுறாங்களா, அந்த இது பண்றது. ஓகேனா, கிரெடிட்டர்ஸ் ஓப்பனிங் பேலன்ஸ், ஆவரேஜ் பேலன்ஸ் ஆஃப் சண்டே கிரெடிட்டர்ஸ் இஸ் ஈக்குவல் டு கிரெடிட்டர்ஸ் ஓப்பனிங் பேலன்ஸ் டிவைடட் பிளஸ் கிரெடிட்டர் க்ளோசிங் பேலன்ஸ் டிவைடட் பை 2. ஓகேனா, தென் ஆவரேஜ் டெய்லி கிரெடிட் பர்ச்சேஸ், ஆனுவல் கிரெடிட் பர்ச்சேஸ் டிவைடட் பை 360 days. Abbreviation. So this is given. RM is raw material, WP is work in progress, FG is the finished goods. So these are all the various cases of the how they have to calculate the computation of the operating cycle components. There are 3 components are very much important: raw material, work in progress, as well as the finished goods. Okay, then next one is the assessment of the working capital. There are two cases, one is the fund based, another one is the non fund based. So working capital, banks evaluate the residual gap in the customer's resources after considering all other sources of funds. Banks use various methods for this. அவங்க என்ன பண்ணலாம், அசஸ்மெண்ட், அவங்களோட ensuring adherence to prudential guidelines and exposure norms. ஸோ அவங்களோட பிஸ்னஸ் வந்து அந்த எக்ஸ்போஷர் நார்ம்ஸில் இருக்கா, இதெல்லாம் பார்த்து அவங்களுக்கு கடன் கொடுக்குறது. ஸோ இந்த பேஸில் தான் பேங்க் என்ன பண்ணுவாங்கன்னா ஒரு பிஸ்னஸோட ஒர்க்கிங் கேபிட்டல் ரிக்வயர்மெண்ட்டை அசஸ் பண்ணுவாங்க. அப்படி அசஸ் பண்ணும்போது என்னென்ன மெத்தடில் அவங்க அசஸ் பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோன்னா, ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஒன் இஸ் தி டர்ன் ஓவர் மெத்தட், which is applicable for the micro, small and medium enterprises units with working capital limits up to rupees 5 crore. இவங்களோட working capital limit எவ்வளோக்குள்ள இருக்கணும், 5 crore. Calculation, working capital finance is computed as 20% of the projected annual turnover. அவங்கள்ட்ட அந்த annual turnover எவ்வளோ இருக்கோ அதில் 20% வந்து calculate பண்ணுவாங்க. Typically, banks provide 20% of the projected turnover as working capital finance. அப்போ என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க, அவங்களோட turnover எவ்வளோ இருக்கும் அந்த for example, அவங்களோட turnover is 1 crore means இந்த 1 crores 20% will be provided for the working capital finance. Okay, so 1 crore 20%. Like the borrower contributes 5% of the projected turnover as a margin money. அந்த margin money அப்படிங்கிறது என்ன, இவங்களால ரீபே பண்ண முடியல அப்படின்னா பேங்க்ல என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க, அந்த மார்ஜின் மணிலேருந்து அமௌண்ட்டை வந்து கலெக்ட் பண்ணிப்பாங்க. ஸோ அதனால 5%. ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள், if the customers apply whether the such a customer is ability to get a loan of 20 lakhs, in that 20 lakhs 25% margin they have to maintain. Around 5% margin means around 1 lakh 10 lakh they have to maintain with the margin. Remaining amount they can sanction. Assumption, the operating cycle is assumed to be 3 months. 3 months once அவங்களுக்கு என்ன இருக்கணும், மணி ரொட்டேஷன் அப்படிங்கிறது, ரா மெட்டீரியல் ஒர்க் இன் ப்ராக்ரஸாக கன்வெர்ட் ஆகி ஒர்க் இன் ப்ராக்ரஸ் ஃபினிஷ்டு குட்ஸ் ஆகி ஃபினிஷ்டு குட்ஸ் it reaches the godown, from the godown it goes to the wholesaler, retailer and consumer, then it will be converted into the cash within a lower period. Longer period it does not go to lower period. Then another one is the operating cycle method, which involves the determining the time taken for the complete cycle of operations. What is the time required from the purchasing of the raw material to collecting the receivables? Purchasing, the first is the raw material purchase time, how many days they have taken for procuring a raw material. Okay, procuring a raw material. Then how many days which is required for converting this raw material into finished goods. Production time, when they have to start the production. Then finished goods, when the production start பண்ணி அது finished goods convert ஆனதுக்கப்புறம் finished goods storage time, how many days they have to keep in the storage. Then how many days they can receivable. Collection time, collection of the converted the raw material work in progress finished goods ஆயிடுச்சு, finished goods ஆகி அது ஸ்டோருக்கு போயிட்டு அது ஸ்டோர்லேருந்து சப்ளை செயினாக க்ராஸ் பண்ணுது, அப்போ கன்சூமர் ஹேண்ட்ஸுக்கு போகும். அப்போ வந்து எவ்வளோ அவங்களோட கலெக்ஷன் டைம் எவ்வளோ பீரியட். ஸோ இந்த ப்ராசஸை ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணி within how many days they can get the amount, repayment of the amount. So if the period is less, their credit worthiness is high. If the period is high, the credit worthiness of the borrower. So in such a case, what is that? A credit period of the borrower will be extended. So how much ever is short, that is good to the banker. It goes with the longer duration. So when it comes to sanctioning the loan, they have to check the borrower's capacity. So maximum permissible bank finances method, projected net working capital. So involves the calculating the maximum permissible bank finance based on the projected net working capital, that is excess of current assets over current liabilities, which is current assets minus current liabilities. If the current asset is higher than the current liability, well and good. So working capital finance a borrower is eligible for. Okay, now if the current liabilities are more than the current asset, the borrower does not eligible to get the working capital finance. So this method uses the projected financial statement to assess the firm's future working capital needs. Present working capital whether satisfied, what is the future working capital needs, that can be assessed. cash budget method based on the preparing a detailed cash budgets and including the projected cash flow as well as the outflow. Only the cash transactions will be taken into account for preparing the cash budget. No credit transactions will be taken into account. What is the cash inflow and the cash outflow? Based on that, they can decide. This is the one of the easiest method, seasonally or variable cash flows. Seasonal firms with marked seasonality or variable cash flows, in such a case they can go with the cash budgets. For example, seasonal product which requires a more working capital during the season but which does not require a more working capital during the non-season period. Okay, no? So that is the cash budget method. Preparation required, they have to prepare the projected financial statement, that is forecasting the future. So another 5 years, so they can use with the comparative statement or common size statement that they have to prepare. Comparative balance sheet or common size balance sheet, okay, that they have to prepare. Then another one is the famous case is they have to prepare the trend analysis. Today my business is like this, another 5 years where I have to go, okay, based on the projected financial statement, based on the projected fund flow statement, inflow and outflow of the funds, based on the cash flow statement and the cash budget. It does not include the credit, transactions, only the cash transaction, that is inflow of cash as well as the outflow of a cash will be taken into account. Okay, then bank policy, that is also one thing. Banks may have specific policy outlined their loan policies for assessing the working, they have their own policy. So these many cases they have discussed the policies of the customers. So whether such a policy, whether it should be matched with the bank policy, then only they can provide the working capital financing. The method chosen depends on the working capital requirements. Whatever the method, bank policy, whether it is the method is the cash budget method or maximum permissible bank finance method, that is the projected net working capital method, of operation cycle method or turnover method. This method, whatever the method, which is depends upon the bank policy, accordingly they have to choose. So operation cycle for assessing the working capital. So operating cycle method already we have discussed, right? That is raw material, work in progress, finished goods which goes to the godown, from the supply chain which starts wholesaler, retailer and consumer, finally it realize the cash. When it goes to the wholesaler itself, it will be realizing the cost. So components of the operating side, this one, raw material holding period, how many days they are holding the raw material, time taken to purchase and stock the raw materials. So if they are time taken to purchase only, it takes a long time, means it very difficult to repay the loan amount. Then next they have to go for the work in progress. First procuring a raw material only, it has taken a longer time, means other cases and all it will get a delay. Production time required to convert the raw material into the finished goods. What is the production cycle is required, how many days required to converting the raw material into the finished product. It requires a days, month or as well as the year. Finished goods, once after converting that raw material into the finished goods, what is the holding period of the finished goods? So how many days such a finished goods has a holding period before being sold? And the goods வந்து சேல் பண்றதுக்கு முன்னாடி, what is the time that finished goods remain at a stock? So that is the, when they are converting the raw material into the finished goods, first good is a raw material, that is the before the what is that before the form of your goods. Once after form of the goods, that should be considered as the finished goods. Receivable collection period, time taken to collect payment from customer after sale of goods. And the goods வந்து சேல் பண்ணதுக்கு அப்புறம் how many days which is required to collect the amount from the customers. That is the components of the operating cycle. Then adjustments for credit terms. So what are all the adjustment they have to take? Credit on raw material, advance payment. If raw materials are purchased on credit, bank finance is needed only for the portion of raw material that is paid for, excluding any credit portions. raw materialக்கே வந்து அவங்களுக்கு கடன் வேணும் அப்படின்னா பேங்க் ஃபினான்ஸ் எவ்வளோ போர்ஷனுக்கு அந்த raw material தேவைப்படுமோ அந்த இதுக்கு மட்டும்தான் அவங்க வந்து கிரெடிட் பண்ணுவாங்க, not more than that. Advance payment, if advance payment are against orders, only the portion of the finished goods that exceed the advance payment will require a bank credit. Advance payment, and the finished goods ஆகிறதுக்கு முன்னாடி அவங்க advance payment கொடுத்துட்டு அவங்க இது பண்றாங்கன்னா remaining portionக்கு மட்டும்தான் bank credit provide பண்ணுவாங்க. Handling of creditors and debtors, creditors and stock. There are two cases. Creditors are not set off against stock in the assessment process. Assessment process la creditors la stock வந்து set off பண்ண மாட்டாங்க. The stock statement is considered independently. Stock statement வேற, creditors ஓட credit worthiness வேற. Detailed list. Borrowers are required to submit the detailed age wise list of sundry creditors and debtors. Age wise list. எதனால age wise listனா based because their retirement period is based on the ages only. So that's a reason borrower's age list is very much important. Till how many years of the service they have, accordingly they have to sanction the loan. Debt collection. Only the debtors with outstanding amount debtors கிட்ட இருந்தது அப்படின்னா specified period, usually 180 days. Within 180 days full அவங்களோட debt amount வந்து collect பண்ணிருக்கணும். If it goes more than 180 days, this performing assets are turned into the non-performing assets. In order to avoid the non-performing assets, it should be collected within 180. Netting of total outstanding creditors are netted from the total outstanding eligible debtors. So இவங்க ரெண்டு பேரும் என்ன பண்றது, கனெக்ட் பண்றது, net பண்றது. How much the outstanding creditors and eligible debtors. If the creditors are higher than the debtors, then it would be good. Excess creditor exceed debtors, the excess portion is deducted from the value of stock. If excess debtors means exceed creditors, the surplus debtors are considered for financing. Surplus debtors மட்டும் finance க்கு எடுத்துப்பாங்க. Calculation example. Stock required. Calculate the value of stock needed based on the operating cycle. What is that operating cycle? Procuring a raw material. Raw material is converted into the work in progress. Then work in progress, it goes to the finished goods. Then finished goods, which goes to the godown. Then it goes to the wholesaler, retailer, then customer, then finalizing the amount, realizing the cash. So that is the net working capital requirement by adjusting for the credit as well as the advance payment. So what is the objective? To ensure that the working capital financing provided align with the firm's operational needs. And the firm operational needs ka align ஆகி இருக்கணும், cash flow cycle proper இருக்கணும், minimizing the risk of the insufficient funds. So next we are going to discuss about the maximum permissible bank finance method. So what is the framework for determining the amount of working capital finance? இவங்க வந்து working capital finance வந்து borrowerக்கு கொடுக்கறதுக்கு முன்னாடி பேங்க்குக்குன்னு ஒரு framework இருக்கு. அதை வந்து பண்ணணும். இந்த framework வந்து எப்படி டெவலப் பண்ணாங்க அப்படின்னா based on the Tandon Committee recommendations which aimed to improve the credit delivery and management practices. So what is the detailed breakdown on the maximum permissible bank finance method? So what is the background and objective of the method? Purpose: to determine the maximum permissible limit for bank finance based on the performance projections of the borrower rather than the merely on security. Recommendation: emphasize efficient inventory management and discuss excessive stock accumulation. Inventory and receivable norms. Raw material average monthly consumption should be taken into account. Stock in progress monthly cost of production, ஒவ்வொரு மந்த்துக்கும் அதை ப்ரொடியூஸ் பண்ணுறதுக்கு எவ்வளோ காஸ்ட். finished goods monthly cost of sales, ஒவ்வொரு மந்த் எவ்வளோ வந்து சேல் ஆயிருக்கு. Receivable based on the monthly gross sales. Flexibility: RBI does not prescribe the detailed norms for each item. Banks decide on classifications. Based on the classification, bank will decide. Methods of lending under the maximum permissible bank finance. So first method of lending is, so borrowing until must contribute a minimum of 25% of the working capital gap from long term funds. அவங்களோட long term funds ல minimum of 25% working capital gap contribution இருக்கணும். Bank finance, இதில் வந்து bank 75% of the working capital gap for the bank financing. Current ratio result in a current ratio about 1.17:1, which is relatively low. So ரொம்ப லோவா இருக்கணுங்கிறாங்க. Suitable for new units or weak units as a supportive measures. New units ஆவும் இருக்கலாம், இல்லை weak units ஆவும் இருக்கலாம். ஒரு supporting method இதை பண்ணுவாங்க. Second method of lending, so borrower must provide at least 25% of the total current asset. Total current assets க்கு 25% கொடுப்பாங்க. இது வந்து long term funds. Bank financing, bank finances the balance. Remaining 75% bank will fund. Ensuring total liability, அவங்களோட total liability எவ்வளோ இருக்கக்கூடாது, 75%க்கு மேலே exceed ஆயிருக்கக்கூடாது. So do not exceed 75% of the current asset. அவங்களோட current assetல total liability 75%க்கு மேலே exceed ஆகக்கூடாது. இதுக்கு என்ன minimum current ratio, standard ratio is 1.33:1. Handling excess borrowing, borrowers cannot comply immediately. Excess borrowing is treated as a long term repayable over time. So that is excess borrowing irundhudu appadina that can be repayable in a long term basis over a time. Long term period na maybe it is a 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, like that, with a higher interest rate. Then third method of lending is the core current asset. Entire core current assets, that is raw material, work in progress and finished goods, whatever the material once after the finished goods stored in the godown or financed from long term funds. Additional funding, bank finances the balance of current asset after netting of the current liabilities. இந்த current liabilities எல்லாம் செட்டில் ஆனதுக்கு அப்புறம் ரிமைனிங் எவ்வளோ கரண்ட் அசட்ஸ் இருக்கோ அதில் வந்து அடிஷ்னல் ஃபண்டிங் பண்ணுவாங்க. ஸோ அதுதான் இது. Then purpose, addresses additional requirements due to fluctuations in current asset level, mainly for the purpose of the seasonal variation. As I told you, right, some of the product are seasonal in nature, such a case they require a more working capital. So when non-season period early, banker provide the less working capital. When the season is not peak in nature, that time they will provide the huge amount of a working capital. Application requires a detailed appraisal of the firm's business plan and financial projections. So அவங்களோட business plan எப்படி இருக்கு, அவங்களோட financial projections எல்லாம் பேஸ் பண்ணி தான் இது பண்ணுவாங்க. Objective is to balance the financing needs for prudent financial management, encouraging internal cash generation and efficient working capital management. Then another one is the credit monitoring arrangement data, CMA data, which is the tools used by banks to assess this is one of the tools which is used by the banker to assess the credit worthiness and working capital needs of the borrowers. So evaluating the financial health of a business and determining the appropriate level of a bank finance. அவங்களோட financial health எப்படி இருக்கு, அதுக்கு ஏத்தாப்புல அவங்க என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க, அவங்களுக்கு எவ்வளோ அமௌண்ட் appropriate financial need என்ன இருக்கு அப்படிங்கிறத கொடுப்பாங்க. Forms 1 என்னென்ன இருக்கு அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோன்னா, particulars of the existing limit, provide details about the existing and proposed credit limits from the banking system and financial institutions. So அவங்களோட purpose என்ன அப்படின்னா, அவங்களோட existing proposed credit limit எவ்வளோ இருக்கு அவங்களோட பேங்கிங் சிஸ்டம் ஆர் ஃபினான்ஷியல் இன்ஸ்டிடியூஷன்ல. மேக்ஸிமம் ஆஃப் மினிமம் யூட்டிலைசேஷன் ஆஃப் லிமிட் ஓவர் தி பாஸ்ட் 12 months. மேக்ஸிமம் என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க அப்படின்னா, ஓவர் 12 monthsல மினிமம் எவ்வளோ யூட்டிலைஸ் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க. அவுட்ஸ்டாண்டிங் பேலன்ஸ் ஆஃப் ரீசெண்ட் டேட், ரீசெண்டாக அவங்களோட அவுட்ஸ்டாண்டிங் பேலன்ஸ் எவ்வளோ இருக்குன்னு. யூசேஜ், அசஸ் யூட்டிலைசேஷன் ஆஃப் கிரெடிட் லிமிட்ஸ், ஐடென்டிஃபை ஓவர் டிராயிங் இன்ஸ்டன்ட் அண்ட் தேர் ரீசன்ஸ். அண்ட் தேர் ரீசன்ஸ், சும்மா ஓவர் ட்ரான் பண்ணிட்டாங்க அப்படின்னா அவங்களால ரீபே பண்ணுறது கஷ்டமாக இருக்கும். அதனால அவங்க ப்ராப்பராக அந்த லோனை வந்து ட்ரா பண்ணி யூஸ் பண்ணுறாங்களா, என்ஷூர் கம்ப்ளைன்ஸ் வித் நார்ம்ஸ் வித் இஸ் பில் கல்ச்சர் அண்ட் ஆல். Then form 2, operating statement. So breaks down their profit and loss account to provide the detailed operational information. So which content gross sales, net sales, cost of raw material, power and fuel, direct labor, depreciation. இவங்களுக்கெல்லாம் எவ்வளோ காஸ்ட் அவங்க பே பண்ணுறாங்க, ஸோ அதை மேனேஜ் பண்ண முடியுமா. யூசேஜ், evaluate reasonableness of projected net டர்ன் ஓவர், அவங்களோட ப்ரொஜெக்டட் டர்ன் ஓவர் எவ்வளோ இருக்குது, அதில் இதெல்லாம் அவங்க பே பண்ணிடுவாங்களா. அனலைஸ் ட்ரெண்ட்ஸ் இன் ஆப்ரேட்டிங் ப்ராஃபிட் அண்ட் நெட் ப்ராஃபிட் ஆஃப் எ ஃபர்ம், அசஸ் மாடர்னைசேஷன், டைவர்சிஃபிகேஷன், எக்ஸ்பான்ஷன் இம்பாக்ட், வெரிஃபை வேல்யூவேஷன் ஆஃப் இன்புட்ஸ் அண்ட் ஓவர்ஹெட். அவங்களோட ஓவர்ஹெட் எக்ஸ்பென்சஸ், இன்டைரக்ட் எக்ஸ்பென்சஸ். ஓவர்ஹெட் அப்படிங்கிறது என்ன அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோன்னா, இன்டைரக்ட் எக்ஸ்பென்சஸ். இது என்னெல்லாம் வரும் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோன்னா, ஃபேக்ட்ரி ஓவர்ஹெட், ஆஃபீஸ் அண்ட் அட்மினிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் ஓவர்ஹெட், செல்லிங் அண்ட் டிஸ்ட்ரிபியூஷன் ஓவர்ஹெட். ஸோ இதெல்லாம் என்ன அப்படின்னா இன்டைரக்ட் எக்ஸ்பென்சஸ். ஸோ அது எப்படி இருக்குது, அதோட யூசேஜ் எப்படி இருக்குது அப்படிங்கிறதையும் செக் பண்ணுவாங்க. ஸோ ஃபார்ம் 3, அனாலிசிஸ் ஆஃப் பேலன்ஸ் ஷீட். நெக்ஸ்ட் தே ஹவ் டு அனலைஸ் தி பேலன்ஸ் ஷீட் லாஸ்ட் 2 years. They have to make a comparative balance sheet and common size balance sheet. They have to, based on that they can project the future. So content which is contains the current liability, long term liability, net worth, current assets and fixed assets. So when it comes to the net worth பார்த்தோன்னா, their share capital, reserves and surplus, okay, long term borrowings, everything which comes under this case. Usage, validate a classification of current asset. They have to classify the current asset and the current liability. What is the increases in inventory and receivable? What is the reason for increasing the inventory as well as the receivable? That they have to justify. Check compliance with the inventory norms, stock management, inventory management norms என்ன இருக்கு, அது provision என்ன இருக்கு அப்படிங்கிறத check பண்ணிட்டு they can provide the loan. Monitor trends in the net worth as well as the net working capital. Then finally they have to monitor the what is the net worth of a particular business, what is the turnover, what is the total value of that business, what is the net working capital, that is excess of current asset, or after paying the current liabilities what is the remaining which is their hand, which is in a negative in nature or positive in nature. If it is a positive, then they can avail the loan, they can provide the loan facilities, they can become a borrower. Form 4, comparative statement of current assets as well as the current liability, so which provides the comparative study of the current assets and current liability and payment credit. So what they have to do, the working capital statement, they have to prepare the working capital statement. There they can calculate the current asset as well as the current liability comparison. So content, inventory, receivables, creditor, payment period, data compared in absolute amount and terms of months. In terms of the months la calculate பண்ணணும். Usage, ensure consistency with the form 3 data வந்து கன்சிஸ்டண்டா இருக்கா, கன்சிஸ்டன்ட் இம்ப்ரூவ்மெண்ட் இருக்கா, இப்போ இன்க்ரீஸ் ஆகிட்டே போயிருந்ததுன்னா இன்க்ரீஸ் ஆகிட்டே இருக்கா, இல்லை ஃப்ளக்சுவேஷன்ஸ் இருக்கா அப்படிங்கிறத பார்க்கணும். ஸோ அவங்களோட பாஸ்ட் ட்ரெண்ட் எப்படி இருக்கு, தேன் தி பாஸ்ட் ட்ரெண்ட் ப்ரெசென்ட் இஸ் குட்டா, தென் பேஸ்ட் ஆன் தி ப்ரெசென்ட் ஹவு தே கேன் ப்ரெடிக்ட் தி ஃபியூச்சர், எவ்ரிதிங். Then computation of the maximum permissible bank finance. Purpose, calculate the maximum permissible bank finance based on the current asset and current liabilities. அவங்களுக்கு எவ்வளோ permissible limit கொடுக்கலாம் அவங்களோட current asset and current liability வச்சுக்கிட்டு. Then this one, computation details of maximum permissible bank finance. So treatment of export bills and third party checks and drafts, இதெல்லாம் அவங்களுக்கு வந்து மெயினாக செக் பண்ணுவாங்க. எக்ஸ்போர்ட் பில் எல்லாம் கரெக்டாக போயிட்டு இருக்கா, தேர்ட் பார்ட்டி செக் அண்ட் டிராஃப்ட் எல்லாம் என்கேஷ் ஆகிட்டு இருக்கா அப்படிங்கிறத பார்ப்பாங்க. யூசேஜ், டிட்டர்மைன் அப்ரோப்ரியேட் கிரெடிட் லிமிட்ஸ் and correlate production and sale increases. If production increases, sale also obviously it should increase. A relationship between the production as well as the sales, with they have to limit the adjustments. Fund flow statement, that is one of the statement, utilization of the short term and long term funds. So content, long term sources and uses, changes in current assets, and also the changes in adequacy of long term funds for long term uses. Then what is the short term funds, match short term borrowings with increase in current asset. அவங்களோட அந்த short term borrowings அவங்க current asset எப்படி increase ஆகுதோ அதில் மேட்ச் பண்ணணும். அந்த current assetலேருந்து அந்த short term borrowings அவங்களால பே பண்ண முடியுமா, that is the fund flow statement, which includes the what is that inflow as well as the outflow of a fund, which includes the credit terms also. Then form 7, they have to check a statement showing the total cost of the project and the source of finance. ஃபார்ம் 7ல் அவங்க என்ன செக் பண்ணணும்னா அவங்களோட காஸ்ட் ஆஃப் தி ப்ராஜெக்ட் என்ன, அந்த பிஸ்னஸோட காஸ்ட் என்ன, எவ்வளோ சோர்சஸ் ஆஃப் ஃபினான்ஸ் ரெலவெண்ட் வென் எ டேர்ம் லோன் இஸ் ரிக்வெஸ்டட். அவங்களுக்கு வந்து டேர்ம் லோன் தேவையாக இருந்தது அப்படின்னா அவங்களோட காஸ்ட் ஆஃப் தி ப்ராஜெக்டும் சோர்ஸ் ஆஃப் ஃபினான்ஸும் பண்ணணும். எந்த சோர்ஸ்லேருந்து அவங்க வந்து ரைஸ் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க. சோர்ஸ் ஆஃப் ஃபினான்ஸ் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோன்னா வெதர் தே கேன் இஷ்யூ தி ரைஸ்டு த்ரூ தி ஷேர் கேபிட்டல், தென் டிபென்ச்சர்ஸ், பாண்ட்ஸ், loan from the financial institutions, banks and financial institution. எந்த சோர்ஸ்லேருந்து அவங்க வந்து அந்த இதை வந்து ரேஸ் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க. Okay, content, detailed project cost and financing sources that they have to incorporate. Key consideration, obtaining these forms is the starting point for detailed financial analysis. These forms help banks in making informed credit decisions. So these are all the forms which helps the banker to make a informed credit decision. So we have discussed with the 7 forms. So form 1 is the particulars of the existing limit. அவங்களோட existing limit ஓட particulars. Form 2 is the operating statement. Form 3, analysis of balance sheet. Form 4 is comparative statement of current asset and current liability. Form 5 is computation of maximum permissible bank finance. Form 6 is fund flow statement, and finally they have to check with the total cost of the project and the source of finance statement. Key consideration, this is. Then cash budget method for assessing the working capital. So cash budget adopted by banks, particularly borrower requiring the fund based limits exceeding 10 crores. If they want the 10 crores, their limit is exceeding more than 10 crores, in such a case they have to check with the cash budget method. Only they have to projecting the cash transaction, substitute for a traditional method like operating cycle method pakama cash transactions only the cash kind of a transaction which include. So cash budget definition, a statement of projecting cash receipt as well as the cash payment for a future period. Future period la அவங்களுக்கு என்ன மாதிரி cash receipt இருக்கும், payment இருக்கும். Usually distinct from the historical cash flow statement. Cash flow statement க்கும் இந்த cash budget அப்படிங்கிறது differ from the historical cash flow statement. They have to consider inflow as well as the outflow of the cash. Here which is called it as the receipt and the payment. It deals only with the cash transactions. no credit transactions will be included. No credit transactions would be considered. Transactions would be considered. No credit transactions would be considered under this cash budget method. Okay, purpose. The primary purpose is to forecast the cash needs, identify the periods of surplus or deficit to determine the working capital requirements. So what are the components of the cash budget? Business operation, cash transaction directly related to the core business activities. Non-business transaction, cash transactions not related to primary business operations. Okay na? Not related to the primary business operation related illadadu. Cash flow from capital account, transaction involving long-term asset. Capital assets அப்படினாலே long-term asset. Sundry items, miscellaneous and cash transaction. Projected period, short-term projection. Cash budgets are typically prepared for short-term periods like a week, a fortnight, a month or quarter. Steps to prepare a cash budget. So these are all the steps to prepare the cash budget. These are all the steps is used to prepare a cash budget. So here I will project you here. So these are all the steps for preparing the cash budget. So first step is nothing but the project. They have to project the receipts and the payments. What is the receipts as well as the payments are there? So forecast the expected receipt and payments for each month within the chosen period. Example quarterly and the 3 months 4 quarters in a year. So 3 months எவ்வளோ cash receipt and payment இருக்கும் for each month within a chosen quarter. Okay, so that is then next என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க அப்படின்னா project பண்ணதுக்கு அப்புறம் they have to calculate the cash position. They have to calculate the cash position. So what is the monthly cash surplus எவ்வளோ இருக்கு, deficit எவ்வளோ இருக்கு? What is the difference between the receipt as well as the payment? If the receipt is more than the payment, that is the surplus. If the receipt is lesser than the payment, okay, receipt over the payment is the surplus. Receipt payment over the receipt is the deficit. Receipt கம்மியா இருக்கு but payment அதிகமா போகுது அப்படின்னா surplus ஆகும். So opening and cash balances adjusted. They have to adjust it with the opening cash balance with the closing cash balance with the monthly cash surplus or deficit. To determine the closing balance determine பண்றதுக்கு they have to subtract from the opening as well as the closing. So adala closing balance for 1 month becomes the opening. So one month oda closing balance is the opening balance of the next month. For example, closing balance in the month of April is the opening balance of the May. Okay, so that they have to consider. Then impact of the surplus or deficit. Surplus increasing the closing cash balance reduce the need for borrowed funds. Surplus இருந்தது அப்படின்னா closing balance அதிகமாக இருக்கும். அப்போ அவங்க என்ன பண்ண மாட்டாங்க, போய் கடன் வாங்கணும்னு போக மாட்டாங்க. இதே டெபிசிட்டாக இருந்ததுன்னா closing balance கம்மியாக இருக்கும். அப்போ அவங்களுக்கு என்ன ஆகும், they have to rely on the borrowed funds. அவங்க கடன் பண்ணாதான் அவங்களோட பிஸ்னஸை பண்ண முடியும் அப்படிங்கிறதுல இருக்கணும். So determine peak deficit. So அப்போ என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க, borrower என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க, இந்த இதில் borrowers contribution. So the borrower contribution net working capital, that is should be at least 25% of the past deficit. அவங்களோட இது சர்ப்ளஸா இருந்தது அப்படின்னா அவங்களோட நெட் ஒர்க்கிங் கேபிட்டல் அட்லீஸ்ட் 25% ஆஃப் தி டெபிசிட் இருக்கும். அதை அவங்க யூஸ் பண்ணிக்கலாம். இதே டெபிசிட்டா இருந்தது அப்படின்னா அவங்களோட நிலைமை எப்படி இருக்கும், determine peak deficit. அவங்களோட deficit whatever this thing is given in the my right side, that is the good sign. Whatever which is given in the my left side, that is the whatever there in the red color, that is the danger zone. Whatever there in the white as well as the blue color, that is the what is that, a safer zone for the banker before sanctioning the working capital financing. So identifying the peak cash deficit amount during the projection period. The peak deficit represents the total working capital finance required. They need more of the working capital requirement. Okay, then allowances for drawings. So then finally what they will do, so borrowers contribution எவ்வளோ இருக்கும், the borrower contribute net working capital should at least 25% of the peak deficit. அதே allowances, actual drawings are permitted based on the monthly deficit. அவங்களோட monthly deficit பார்த்துட்டு average payment பண்ணுவாங்க. So that is one case. Next we are going to discuss about the this one. So whatever the steps for determining the cash budget, application of the cash budget method. So cash budget method க்கு என்ன மாதிரியான various scenario என்னென்ன இருக்கும் அப்படின்னா, opening letter of credit, ad hoc working capital facilities and bill financing. So what is that? There are three cases. One is the opening letters of credit, another one is the ad hoc working capital finances, second one is the ad hoc working capital finance. So that is ad hoc working capital finance is nothing but the what we can say that as per the RBI circular, this is appropriately price each of the two components of the working capital finance, taken into account their impact of such accounts on their cash and liquidity management. Cash and liquidity management இது பண்றது, இது ad hoc working capital finance. That is possible forms of the working capital. What is the fund based limit of the working capital? That is call it as the ad hoc working capital limit of your capital is required for the business in order to meet their business problems. So that is call it as the ad hoc working capital. Okay, then next they have to go with the bill financing, then construction financing. That is also one of the important case, how they have to construct their financing. So they have to now look into this, that is construction financing. Then next one we can take on with the seasonal industries like a plantation, tea, coffee, rubber, manufacturing, sugar, software development, processing. So each and every business working capital is not remain same, not the same, not remain constant or not remain same. It depends upon the various kinds of the business. So what is the benefit of cash budget method? Precise forecasting, dynamic assessment and tailored financing. Forecasting is nearly good cash needs, helping an accurate working capital assessment, dynamic adjustment, allow adjustment based on the actual cash flows and deficit, tailored financing. So assist in determining the exact amount of working capital finance needed. So consideration, infrastructure requirement requires a robust internal management information, that is computerized environment for accurate அவங்களோட accurate projections பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னா the computerized environment, professional expertise will do it. So advantages of the credit management system, there are three cases we are going to discuss. One is the proactive cash management. They should have the advanced planning. They should be proactive in nature, cash requirement in advance. If the additional funds are not available from their bank, they have the opportunity to seek alternate source early on. அவங்களுக்கு வந்து அஃபிஷியலாக அவங்கள்ட்ட அந்த ஆப்பர்ச்சுனிட்டி இல்லை, have the opportunity to seek the alternative source early. அவங்கள்ட்ட அவைலபிள் இல்லை அப்படின்னா வேற என்ன ஆப்பர்ச்சுனிட்டி இருக்கு டு ரைஸ் தி ஃபண்ட்ஸ். எப்போதும் வந்து அவங்க வந்து கடன் கொடுக்கறதுக்கான அமௌண்ட்டை வந்து ரெடியாக வச்சிருக்கணும், அப்போ தான் பாரோயர் கேட்ட உடனே கொடுக்க முடியும். ஸோ தே கேன் மேக் எ ப்ராஃபிட். தி ப்ரோஆக்டிவ் அப்ரோச் allows தி பெட்டர் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட் ஆஃப் கேஷ் ஃப்ளோ, டைம்லி அட்ஜஸ்ட்மெண்ட். ப்ரோஆக்டிவாக இருந்தால் தான் இந்த இன்ஃப்ளோ அண்ட் அவுட்ஃப்ளோ அப்படிங்கிறத மேனேஜ் பண்ண முடியும். ஸோ தே கேன் ப்ரொவைட் தி enhanced banker customer relationship, between the debtor and creditor relationship. They can create financial activities and detection of potential issues on warning signs. Timely intervention, problems can be identified and corrective actions can be taken more swiftly, improving overall financial management. Effective credit planning, so resource allocation. Banks can plan their resources more effectively to meet the anticipated credit demands. So assessment of then meaningful planning, credit planning becomes more structured. ரொம்ப ஸ்ட்ரக்சரா இந்த கிரெடிட் பிளான் யாருக்கு கொடுத்தா எப்படி திரும்ப வாங்கலாம் அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு பிளான் இருக்கணும், aligned with the actual cash flow projection. So when it comes to the non fund based facilitiesல பார்த்தோம் அப்படின்னா credit needs of a borrower. ஸோ பேங்க் கேரண்டி டைப்ஸ் ஆஃப் இது வந்து கடன் கொடுக்கறது அப்படிங்கிறது வந்து கேஷாக மட்டும் இல்லாமல் நான் ஃபண்டாகவும் கொடுப்பாங்க. பேங்கர் ப்ரொவைட் தி கேரண்டி ஆன் பிஹாஃப் ஆஃப் தி கஸ்டமர். தட் இஸ் தி டைப்ஸ் ஆஃப் பேங்க் கேரண்டி, விச் இஸ் தி ஃபினான்ஷியல் கேரண்டி covers the financial obligations of the borrower. Performance guarantee, which is covering the performance of a contractual obligation. So assessment process, nature and purpose, determine the type and purpose of the guarantee, which defines the contract details, contract period and guarantee amount. Then consumer credit worthiness, evaluate the consumer credit worthiness and the relationship. If they have the good relationship with the banker obviously will provide the guarantee. Conditions set, condition as a cash margin, security, registration, etc. Types of guarantee, permanent guarantee, example security deposit for utility, business, activity related guarantee, bid bonds, performance guarantees. Third one is the export quota guarantee based on the export levels. Fourth one is tax liability guarantee for disputed tax liability. Import capital goods guarantee for concessional imported duties. In order to get the concessional imported duty காக import of capital goods guarantee கொடுப்பாங்க banker. Advance payment for advance payment from customer கிட்ட இருந்து advance payment வாங்கணும் அப்படிங்கிறதுனால கொடுப்பாங்க. பர்மனன்ட் கேரண்டி அப்படின்னா செக்யூரிட்டி டெபாசிட், அவங்களோட யூட்டிலிட்டிக்கு செக்யூரிட்டி டெபாசிட் கொடுக்கறது. பிஸ்னஸ் ஆக்டிவிட்டி லைக் பிட் பாண்ட்ஸ், பர்ஃபார்மன்ஸ் கேரண்டி. எக்ஸ்போர்ட் கோட்டா பேஸ்ட் ஆன் தி எக்ஸ்போர்ட் லெவல். டாக்ஸ் லைபிலிட்டி ஃபார் டிஸ்பியூட்டட் டாக்ஸ் லைபிலிட்டி, அதாவது டிஸ்பியூட்டட் டாக்ஸ் லைபிலிட்டி இருந்தது அப்படின்னா அதுக்கு பேங்கர் கேரண்டி கொடுப்பாங்க ஆன் பிஹாஃப் ஆஃப் தி கஸ்டமர். import of capital goods guarantee in order to get the concessional import duties. Advanced payment guarantee for advance payment from customers. Example circulation, security deposit guarantee, also bid bond guarantee, advance payment based on electricity bill and required deposit. Security deposit அவங்களோட electricity bill பார்த்துட்டு அதுக்கு ஏத்தாப்புல required. Bid bond guaranteena based on the tender value and percentage required. டெண்டர் வேல்யூ என்ன இருக்கு, பேங்க்ல என்ன கோட் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க, அந்த டெண்டர் வேல்யூக்கு ஏத்தாப்புல அவங்க கேரண்டி கொடுத்தா அது ஒரு பர்சன்டேஜ், நான் எந்த அளவுக்கு கேரண்டி கொடுத்துருக்காங்களோ அந்த டெண்டர் வேல்யூ மேல அந்த பர்சன்டேஜை கமிஷனா பேங்கை ரிசீவ் பண்ணிப்பாங்க. அட்வான்ஸ்டு பேமெண்ட் கேரண்டி லிங்க்டு டு தி அட்வான்ஸ் பேமெண்ட் எக்ஸ்பெக்டட். The next one is the letter of credit, conditional undertaking by the issuing bank to pay the beneficiary upon the presentation of a specified documents. அவங்க என்ன கொடுப்பாங்கன்னா letter of credit அப்படிங்கிறது கொடுப்பாங்க. Undertaken by the issuing bank to pay the beneficiaryக்காக issuing bank இது கொடுப்பாங்க with the specified documents. Types of payment, documents against payment is made upon the presentation. அந்த letter of credit present பண்ணாங்க அப்படின்னா பேமெண்ட் கொடுப்பாங்க. against acceptance, payment is made on the deferred basis in a futureல நான் இதை அக்செப்ட் பண்ணிக்கிறேன் அப்படின்னு. assessment process, projected raw material consumption for determining the limit. அவங்களோட லிமிட்டை டிட்டர்மைன் பண்றதுக்கு அவங்களோட future raw material consumption எப்படி இருக்கும், credit terms, time required to advising the letter of credit, shipment and credit period. letter of credit நான் இந்த 3 monthsக்குள்ள என்னோட கஸ்டமர் வந்து உங்களோட லோன் அமௌண்ட்டை ரீபே பண்ணிடுவாங்க, உங்களுக்கான அந்த இம்போர்ட் டியூட்டி ஆர் எக்ஸ்போர்ட் டியூட்டியை ரீபே பண்ணிடுவாங்கன்னு பேங்கர் என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க, கேரண்டி கொடுக்கறது கஸ்டமருக்கு. ஸோ எவ்வளோ வேல்யூ ஆஃப் தி அசட்டுக்கு கேரண்டி கொடுக்குறாங்களோ அதில் ஒரு பர்சன்டேஜ்க்கு வந்து பேங்கிங் கமிஷன்ஸ் எடுத்துப்பாங்க. அதுதான் பேங்கோட இன்கம். தட் இஸ் தி நான் பேங்க் வந்து எந்த ஃபண்டும் கொடுக்க மாட்டாங்க, பட் தேர் வேர்ட்ஸ், what is that, their promises make the other people to satisfy. Calculation example, cycle time, sum of advising time, shipment time and credit period. These three will be taken into account. Advising time, shipment time, credit period. Number of cycle, annual period of 360. Letter of credit limit calculated based on the projected raw material purchase and credit terms. அவங்க ரெண்டு பேருக்குள்ள என்ன credit terms இருக்கோ அதுக்கு ஏத்தாப்புல. So term loan requirement of a borrower involves several critical steps to ensure that the project is financially viable and sustainable. Financially viable and sustainable இருக்கா அப்படிங்கிறது. Land and site development, basic cost includes purchase price and alleged charges, least premium if applicable, developmental cost, leveling, road construction, boundary walls, etc. Utility tube walls, consideration, local impact cost, urban sales are usually more expensive. இதே land and site development இருந்தது அப்படின்னா இதெல்லாம் பார்ப்பாங்க. இதே building cost எடுத்துக்கிட்டாங்க அப்படின்னா என்ன டைப் ஆஃப் பில்டிங், இதே ஃபேக்ட்ரி பில்டிங்கா, அட்மினிஸ்ட்ரேட்டிவ் ஆர் ஆஃபீஸா, கேன்டீனான்னு பார்ப்பாங்க. எஸ்டிமேட் பேஸ்ட் ஆன் தி பிளிந்த் ஏரியா, எவ்வளோ ஏரியாவில் அதை வந்து கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ட் பண்ணுறாங்க, மெட்டீரியல் ரேட் என்ன இருக்குது, ரா மெட்டீரியல், அப்ரூவ்டு ஆர்கிடெக்சரல் பிளான் வந்து ப்ராப்பராக அப்ரூவ் ஆயிருக்கா, என்ஷூர் பிளான்ஸ் ஆர் சாங்ஷன்டு பை தி ரெலவெண்ட் அத்தாரிட்டிஸ். நெக்ஸ்ட் பிளான்ட் அண்ட் மிஷினரி, காஸ்ட் பிரேக் டவுன், இம்போர்ட் காஸ்ட், ஃப்ரைட் அண்ட் போர்டு வேல்யூ. அது வந்து போர்டில் இருக்கும்போது அந்த ஃப்ரைட்டோட காஸ்ட் என்ன, போர்டு வேல்யூ, ஷிப்பிங், இன்சூரன்ஸ் எல்லாம் வரும். டியூட்டிஸ் அண்ட் சார்ஜஸ், இம்போர்ட் டியூட்டிஸ், கிளியரிங் அண்ட் டிரான்ஸ்போர்ட்டேஷன், அங்கேருந்து இங்கே எடுத்துகிட்டு வரதுக்கு எவ்வளோ காஸ்ட் ஆகும். ஸோ வெரிஃபிகேஷன், என்ஷூர் மிஷினரி இஸ் ஸ்டாண்டர்ட் அண்ட் கன்சிடர் தி காஸ்ட் ஆஃப் அடிஷனல் எக்யூப்மெண்ட். ஓகேனா அது. Technical know-how and engineering fees, consulting fee, that is the project preparation, technology choice. இதுக்கு வந்து ஃபண்ட் பண்ணுறது. ராயல்ட்டி, டிப்பிக்கலி a percentage of sales are treated as an operational expense. அதுக்கு பேங்கருக்கு ராயல்ட்டி கொடுக்குறது. Foreign technical and training, expenses of cost of foreign experts and training programs for local staff. Foreign expert எவ்வளோ கொடுக்குறாங்க training, local staffக்கு what is the cost, okay na? So that is technical, that is foreign technicians and training. Then miscellaneous assets are furniture, example furniture, lab, firefighting systems and assessment use codes for two various tasks. This is non-fund based. Preliminary and pre-operative expenses. Preliminary expenses na பார்த்தனா first cost before company formation. அதான் company formationக்கு முன்னாடி உள்ள இருக்குது. Feasibility study, legal fees இதெல்லாம் இதெல்லாம் வரும். Pre-operative expenses once after start the operations of the company to commercial productions. எல்லாம் இது pre-operative expensesல வரும். Then capital issue expenses, underwriting, brokerage, listing fees இதெல்லாம் வந்து இதுல வரும். இதெல்லாம் non-fund based. Okay, contingencies provision typically 5 to 10% of non-firm cost items. Non-firm cost items la 5 to 10% escalation, additionally provision for longer implementation period. Margin for working capital, part of working capital needs to come from the long-term sources. Part of working capital எதுலேருந்து வரணும் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோன்னா long term investmentலேருந்து. Long term sources are nothing but the long term investments, okay, and long term borrowings. The blockage, a portion of the loan may be blocked initially to be released upon project completion. Project completion ஆனதுக்கு அப்புறம் தான் blocked amount வந்து release பண்ணுவாங்க. Initial cash losses, provision make a realistic provision for expected initial losses to avoid liquidity issue. Sources of finance, there are 6 sources. First one is the equity, share capital. Equity or preference share capital. Second one is the term loan from banks or financial institution, local or foreign currency. Third one is debenture, convertible or non-convertible debenture. Deferred credit, supplier credits, that is in a future. Fifth one, incentive, government subsidies and tax benefits and the business எப்படி இருக்கு. Miscellaneous sources, unsecured loan, public deposits and leasing. So these are all the example calculations to determine the long term loan limit வந்து calculate பண்றதுக்கு என்ன மாதிரியான calculationsலாம் பண்ணலாம். Assess total project cost, sum up all the above components. மேல கொடுத்திருக்காங்களே இந்த எல்லா components, equity share capital plus term loan plus debentures plus deferred credit plus incentive plus miscellaneous sources, everything. Determine availability financing, எவ்வளோ financing வந்து potential source of finance இருக்கு, including equity and debt சேர்த்து எவ்வளோ financing availability இருக்கு. Apply debt equity norms. Debt equity ratio is within acceptable limit. Prepare a financial plan. They have to prepare a total financial plan in order to project the cash flows. Assessing viability, debt servicing capacity. Evaluating the viability of the business activity in order to assess viability of a business activity, whether such a business can have a ability to make a profit. Okay, steps to assess the viability: project financial estimates, sales forecast, predicted sales volumes and revenue, cost estimate, cost of production, cost of sales, which include the raw material, labor and overhead. Data elements required, installed capacity, what is the maximum production capacity of the plant, and the plant production capacity எவ்வளோ இருக்கு. For example, they can produce the 1000 quintals 10,000 quintal plant இல்லை 30,000 quintal plant அப்படிங்கிறது தெரியும். Operational details, எவ்வளோ shift ஒரு நாளைக்கு இருக்கு, ஒரு ஷிஃப்டா ரெண்டு ஷிஃப்டா அப்படிங்கிறது. ஒர்க்கிங் டேஸ் பர் இயர், ஒரு நாளைக்கு மினிமம் 360 days ஒர்க்கிங் டேஸ். இதில் வந்து என்ன அப்படின்னா 4 weeks off in a year, 4 weeks off will be there. In a 12 months, okay, how many weeks? Some cases no, 2 weeks off will be given. That is in a week 1 day is off. Okay, capacity utilization, expected utilization of rates, what is the product mix, types of product and their expected sales proportions. So for example, as a product is they are having the diversified business, they have to think with the product mix. For example, இதுக்கெல்லாம் என்ன example பண்ணா Reliance, Tata groups, this and all, they have the product mix. Tata groups and all which belongs to that group. Customer, the type of customers க்கு எப்படி pay பண்ணணும். Input cost, quality and price of raw material, that is important. Output prices, expected selling price of the product. So when it comes to the cost breakdown அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோன்னா இதெல்லாம் first one is the unit cost per unit of output, labor cost, wages and labor, repair and maintenance, regular upkeep cost, plant overhead, administrative expenses, packing cost, packing the materials and labor, selling expenses, that is which includes the marketing, advertising, sale commission. Then finance expenses, that is the interest on borrowing. Then ninth one is the depreciation, allocation of the cost of fixed assets over their useful life. On the useful life la evlo vandu fixed asset ku depreciation. Then 10th income tax, that is expected tax liability. Then 11th one is the price rise. Though cost breakdown pathona from the production length till the what is that till making a profit, that sell the goods, for that they have to pay the income tax and the price rise fluctuation. First one unit cost of production, second one labor cost, third one repair and maintenance, fourth plant overhead, fifth administrative expenses, sixth packing cost, seventh selling, eighth financial expenses, ninth depreciation, 11th income tax, 10th income tax and 11th is price rise. The next one is the financial projection. So they have to project the profit and loss account, prepare a detailed profit and loss account projecting the revenues, cost and profit. Cash flow statement, estimate the inflow and outflow of the cash and focusing on the cash surplus. Then net profit calculation, determine the net profit before taxes and provisions. So earning before interest and earning before PAT, profit after taxes, cash surplus, assess the cash surplus available for servicing the debt. What is the debt, what is the this one ஈக்விட்டிலேருந்து டெட்டை மைனஸ் பண்ணிவிட்டு ரிமைனிங் எவ்வளோ இருக்கோ அதுதான் கேஷ் சர்ப்ளஸ். செகண்ட் ஒன் டெட் சர்வீசிங் கெப்பாசிட்டி. So evaluating the projected cash surplus and sufficient to meet the annual loan installment. அவங்களால அந்த loan installment pay பண்ண முடியுமா? என்னென்ன ஸ்டெப்ஸ்னா they have to calculate the debt service coverage ratio. Formula net operating income divided by debt service. Net operating income, profit before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization, EBITDA. Earning before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization. இதெல்லாம் பே பண்ணதுக்கு அப்புறம் அவங்க கையில எவ்வளோ இருக்கு, ப்ராஃபிட் இருக்கா, டோட்டல் ஆனுவல் லோன் ரீபேமெண்ட், இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் பிளஸ் பிரின்சிபல், இதை பேஸ் பண்ணி தான் அவங்க வந்து இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் அண்ட் பிரின்சிபலை எப்படி பே பண்ணுறாங்க. Next, projected cash flows, determine the annual cash flows available for debt servicing. எவ்வளோ annual cash flow இருக்கு. debt servicingனா அவங்கள்ட்ட வரக்கூடிய டர்ன்ஓவர்லேருந்து எவ்வளோ அமௌண்ட் அவங்க டெட்டுக்கு பே பண்ண முடியும், அதுதான் debt service. Compare with the debt obligation, ensure the projected cash flows exceed annual debt service requirements. அவங்களோட projected cash flow, inflow of a cash flow, inflow of a cash, it should be higher than the debt service. அவங்களால பே பண்ணக்கூடிய ரீபே பண்ணக்கூடிய லோனுக்கும் அதிகமாக இருக்கணும். அப்படி இருந்தால் தான் அவங்களால அந்த லோன் அமௌண்ட்டை ரீபே பண்ண முடியும். Assess financial stability, sensitivity analysis and stress trading. Sensitivity, evaluate the how changes in sales, cost and other variables impact profitability and cash flow. Stress testing, analyze the impact of adverse scenarios, reduced sales or increased cost. Sale in cost increase ஆனதுனால sales reduce ஆயிடுச்சு. இப்போ sales reduce ஆனா எப்படி, அது whether which impact on the profit, which impact on the turnover, இதெல்லாம் பார்த்து அவங்க கொடுக்கணும். லோன் ரீபேமெண்ட் பிளான், மேட்ச் கேஷ் ஃப்ளோ டு ரீபேமெண்ட் ஷெட்யூல். அவங்களோட கேஷ் ஃப்ளோ, இன்ஃப்ளோ அண்ட் அவுட் ஃப்ளோ ஆஃப் கேஷுக்கும் ரீபேமெண்ட் ஷெட்யூலுக்கும் மேட்ச் பண்ணணும். ஓகேனா, கேஷ் ஃப்ளோஸ் அலைன் வித் தி லோன் ரீபேமெண்ட். கண்டிஜென்சி பிளானிங், prepare for potential shortfalls with contingency measures. The next one is the debt service coverage ratio. That is crucial metric used to assess a company's ability to service its debt obligations. What is that? அவங்க debt service coverage ratio அப்படிங்கிறது கம்பெனியோட debt obligation, assess a company's ability to service its debt obligations. ஸோ கம்பெனியோட சர்வீஸ் வந்து அவங்களோட அந்த டெட் ஆப்ளிகேஷன்ஸை மீட் பண்ணுமா. சர்வீஸ்னால் அவங்க பண்ணக்கூடிய பிஸ்னஸ் வந்து அவங்களோட டெட்டை ரீபே பண்ண முடியுமா அப்படிங்கிறதான் டெட் சர்வீஸ் கவரேஜ் ரேஷியோ. It reflects how comfortably a business can meet the debt servicing requirement. This is the formula for calculating debt service coverage ratio is equal to net profit plus depreciation plus other non-cash expenses plus interest on term loans divided by interest on term loan plus installment of term loan, interest and installment. Net profit, profit after all operating expenses and taxes. இப்போ operating expenses ஆப்ரேட்டிங் எக்ஸ்பென்சஸ் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோன்னா ஸோ ஆப்ரேட்டிங் எக்ஸ்பென்சஸ் அந்த பிஸ்னஸ் தான் ஆப்ரேட் பண்ணுறதுக்கு என்ன மாதிரியான எக்ஸ்பென்சஸ் வேணும் அப்படிங்கிறது தான் ஆப்ரேட்டிங் எக்ஸ்பென்சஸ் அப்படிங்கிறது. ஓகேனா, விச் இன்க்ளூட் என்னென்ன ஆப்ரேட்டிங் எக்ஸ்பென்சஸ் வேணும்? ரெண்ட்டு, எக்யூப்மெண்ட்டு, இன்வென்ட்ரி காஸ்ட், மார்க்கெட்டிங், பேரோல், தட் இஸ் வேஜஸ் டு தேர் எம்ப்ளாயீஸ் ஆர் சேலரி டு தி எம்ப்ளாயீஸ், இதெல்லாம் ஆப்ரேட்டிங். இன்சூரன்ஸ் என்னென்ன ஆப்ரேட்டிங்னு பார்த்தோம்? ரெண்ட்டு, எக்யூப்மெண்ட்டு, இன்வென்ட்ரி காஸ்ட், மார்க்கெட்டிங், payroll, insurance and funds allocated for research and development. இதெல்லாம் எதுல வரும் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோம்னா ஆப்ரேட்டிங் காஸ்ட். ஓகேனா, இதெல்லாம் தான் ஆப்ரேட்டிங் எக்ஸ்பென்சஸ் அண்ட் டாக்ஸஸ். நெக்ஸ்ட் ஒன் டிப்ரிசியேஷன், நான் கேஷ் எக்ஸ்பென்சஸ் ரிலேட்டட் டு தி அலோகேஷன் ஆஃப் தி, இது வந்து எதுக்கு மட்டும்தான் இருக்கும்? ஃபிக்ஸ்ட் அசெட். டிட்டோரியேஷன் ஆஃப் தி வேல்யூ ஆஃப் தி ஃபிக்ஸ்ட் அசெட். ஃபிக்ஸ்ட் அசெட் நம்ம யூஸ் பண்ண அதோட வேல்யூ என்ன ஆகும்? டிட்டோரியேட் ஆகும். அது ஒன்லி விச் இஸ் நான் கேஷ் எக்ஸ்பென்சஸ் which is applicable only for the fixed assets, not for any kind of the assets. Non-cash expenses, amortization of provision that do not involve in the actual cash outflow. Non-amortization, amortization of provisions. And the provisions என்ன பண்றது? Provision for doubtful debts, provision for debtors, இதெல்லாம் வந்து amortize பண்றது. அதெல்லாம் என்ன பண்றது? Repay பண்ணி அதை close பண்றது. Interest on term loan, interest payment on the long term borrowings. Installment of term loan, principal repayment on the long term borrowings. இந்த பர்பஸ் ஆஃப் டிஎஸ்சிஆர் அது என்ன? எதுக்காக அந்த டெட் சர்வீஸ் கவரேஜ் ரேஷியோவை கால்குலேட் பண்ணுறாங்க அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோன்னா, எதுக்காக கால்குலேட் பண்ணணும் இந்த டெட் சர்வீஸ் கவரேஜ் ரேஷியோ? வாட் இஸ் தி பர்பஸ் ஆஃப் கால்குலேட்டிங் தி டெட் கவரேஜ் ரேஷியோ? ஸோ அசஸிங் டெட் சர்வீசிங் கெப்பாசிட்டி, அந்த பிஸ்னஸ் பீப்புளோட டெட் சர்வீசிங் கெப்பாசிட்டி. நான் இப்போ கடன் வாங்கினேன் என் பிஸ்னஸ்க்காகனா என்னால் எவ்வளோ அமௌண்ட்டை ரீபே பண்ண முடியும், அதுதான் வந்து இன்டர்னல் கேஷ் ஃப்ளோ எப்படி இருக்கு. அந்த இன்டர்னல் கேஷ் ஃப்ளோ வச்சுட்டு ஹவு ஐ கேன் மேக் தி அவுட் ஃப்ளோஸ். A ratio above 1 indicates that the company generates enough cash to meet its debt obligations. So equity, debt equity ratio it should be 1:1. இருந்தது அப்படின்னா they can meet the debt obligation. Loan appraisal, so lender use that debt service coverage ratio to evaluate the risk associated with the loan. அவங்களோட லோனுக்கு எகென்ஸ்டா என்ன ரிஸ்க் அசோசியேட்டடா இருக்கா அப்படிங்கிறத கண்டுபிடிக்கிறதுக்கு தான் இந்த டிஎஸ்ஆர் அப்படிங்கிறது. ஹையர் டிஎஸ்ஆர் இருந்ததுன்னா ரிஸ்க் இஸ் லோ, லோ டிஎஸ்ஆர் இருந்ததுன்னா ரிஸ்க் இஸ் ஹை. Then interpretation of DSR, DSCR, that service coverage ratio 1.50 considered this is a standard benchmark, indicates the after meeting debt obligation the company still remain 50%. debt obligations எல்லாம் மீட் பண்ணி கடன் கொடுக்கறதெல்லாம் கொடுத்து remaining company-யோட கையில 50% இருக்கு cash surplusனா that is good, provides a margin safety for lenders. lendersக்கு எப்படி இருக்கும்? சேஃப்டியா இருக்கும். இதே less than 1.50 may be acceptable in initial years. Cash flows are expected to improve. Lenders might adjust loan terms and adjust பண்ணிப்பாங்க, such as extending the repayment period. அப்ப என்ன பண்ணலாம்? 1.50 below இருந்தது அப்படின்னா அது என்ன ஆகும் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோன்னா லோன் அமௌண்ட்டை பே பண்ணலாம், பட் என்ன பண்ண முடியாது, அவங்களுக்கு வந்து ரிஸ்க் எடுக்க முடியாது. அப்போ அவங்க என்ன பண்ணிப்பாங்க அப்படின்னா சடனாக கம்மி ஆயிடுச்சுன்னா கஷ்டமாயிடும். அப்போ அவங்க என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க? they can extend the loan repayment period. இது 15 years இருந்ததுன்னா they will convert that into the 20 years based on the LSDR, DSCR. ஓகே, இதே about இருந்ததுன்னா strong repayment capacity அப்படிங்கிறது ரொம்ப strong. lenders may recommend accelerated repayment of higher loan amount based on the company's strong financial position. இதே 2 இருந்தது அப்படின்னா that is very well and good. In such a case banker does not reluctant, banker is very keen to provide loans to that so that they can recover the loan amount within a proper duration. So more than 1.5 is okay, less than 1.5 little better, they have to increase the repayment schedule. If it is more than 2, bankers close their eyes and sanction the loan amount. Practical consideration, they have to look into the annual projections, profitability statement for the entire loan tenor, and the loan tenor la evlo profitability statement ஒவ்வொரு இயரும் இந்த டிஎஸ்ஆர் டெட் ஸ்டோரேஜ் கவரேஜ் ரேஷியோவை கால்குலேட் பண்ணி அதில் டெட் சர்வீசிங் கெப்பாசிட்டி எவ்வளோ இருக்குன்னு பார்ப்பாங்க. ரீபேமெண்ட் ஸ்ட்ரக்சரிங், இனிஷியல் ரிலீஃப், லோயர் இன்ஸ்டால்மெண்ட், இனிஷியலி இன்க்ரீசிங் அண்ட் ப்ராஃபிட்டபிலிட்டி க்ரோஸ், extended and lengthen the repayment period to match projected cash flows. Okay, then finally accelerated repayment. High DSCR இருந்ததுன்னா consider faster repayment schedule. அவங்களுக்கு வந்து faster repayment schedule கொடுப்பாங்க. Adjustment for cash flow fluctuation, conduct sensitivity stress test to understand how fluctuation in sales, அவங்களோட சேல்ஸ்ல வந்து எவ்வளவு fluctuations ஆயிருக்கு, காஸ்ட்ல என்ன fluctuations இருக்கு, and other factors how which impact on the that debt service coverage ratio. இந்த எவ்வளோ அந்த டெட் சர்வீஸ் கவரேஜ் ரேஷியோ வந்து எவ்வளோ வந்து அந்த இதை வந்து அட்ஜஸ்ட் பண்ணும் அப்படிங்கிறத பார்த்துட்டு லோன் கொடுப்பாங்க. ஸோ in this video we have discussed about that appraisal and assessment of credit facilities. It's a very long case there which based on the principle of lending லேருந்து எப்படி வந்து அவங்க ஒர்க்கிங் கேபிட்டல் ஃபினான்சிங் கொடுப்பாங்க, அதில் வந்து ஃபண்ட் பேஸ்டு ஒர்க்கிங் கேபிட்டல் ஃபினான்சிங் எப்படி இருக்கும், அந்த நான் ஃபண்ட் பேஸ்டு ஒர்க்கிங் கேபிட்டல் ஃபினான்ஸ் எப்படி இருக்கும், அதில் நம்ம என்ன பண்ணோம், இந்த ஒர்க்கிங் கேபிட்டல் ஆப்ரேட்டிங் சைக்கிள், ரா மெட்டீரியல், ஒர்க் இன் ப்ராக்ரஸ், ஃபினிஷ்டு குட்ஸ், வாட் ஆல் தி calculations, what all the formula we can use, that we have discussed in this video. And also we have discussed with the various ratios, working capital, fund based working capital எப்படி இருக்கும், non fund based working capital எப்படி இருக்கும், till we have discussed with the debt service coverage ratio. So this is all about that the appraisal and assessment of credit facilities by the banker in order to facilitate their borrowers. Hope you are all enjoying my video and you can understand the content what I have explaining to you. So please stay tuned on my videos. So thank you one and all. Thank you for your patience listening. So I will meet you with my next video soon. Thank you one and all.